I think I did the fade in too early this time. We are both besought with allergies today. Or at least
Yes.
I am, so I might be muting a lot. I apologize if you hear nothing for and I'm just talking at times. My mother said wine cures allergies, so I'm gonna try that. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. As long as you drink enough of it, I'm sure you'll forget about the allergies.
Remember what happened to the doctor the last time he drank wine?
Uh,
Absolutely nothing.
okay.
He still had his wits.
Yes, yes. What you got to do is spike the wine with ginger, and that
That's right.
disables a Time Lord's ability to hyper metabolize alcohol, so they can get drunk, and in fact, tend to be tend to be real lightweights when it comes to alcohol. You just have to put some ginger in there with it. So, I don't know what sorts of drinks you can mix with ginger ale, but
Lots
that's
of
where you.
drinks.
So, well, yes, we are here for another episode of Rassilon Omega and that other guy. Though sadly, the other is apparently out buying a jukebox for his TARDIS because, like, I guess everybody needs one in their TARDIS now.
I think you mean iPod.
iPod, yes.
Also, which other do you which other are you talking about? Now there's the other.
Yes, yes. Well, it does seem like there's a lot more doctors to go around than we thought there were like 5 years ago.
Rassilon, Omega, and the other. I like the sound of that.
All those other guys.
And all those other guys.
The timeless other guys.
The timeless other guys. I thought so much about the timeless child when I was watching this episode.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I did actually.
So, well, yes, today we are going to be doing another TARDIS episode, and that stands for Totally Awesome Review discussing interesting stories. And I think this one really qualifies. So, if you like it, like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, everyone.
Maybe I'll let you do that part. It's kind of tricky. You've got more.
I'll try to channel Neil Patrick Harris. He's such a good showman. He was very good. Like and subscribe, everyone. What have you got to lose?
You didn't do it in a terrible German accent.
I was actually really happy that he did that because it kind of like shows that the Toymaker doesn't understand like any like anything about appropriateness whatsoever. So
Yeah,
I was like, okay, now we must. And you know what? Sorry, we're jumping right into it. We got to be calm here. We got to do the intros and everything. But I'll just say that you pretty much pegged it as far as the cue of Doctor Who.
Oh yeah. I mean, I obviously the Toymaker came first, but if you just want to describe the Toymaker to somebody who's seen Next Generation, just say it's Q. I mean, it is.
Yeah, but there's an extra layer that I'm sure we'll talk about with the golden tooth.
Well, yes, it's not not a complete 100%, identical, but there is a lot of Q there, and that's fine. I mean, we're so used to the Doctor being able to sonic his way out of situations that putting him up against an enemy where the sonic screwdriver is completely useless is actually kind of interesting. So. I think they should bring the Toymaker back at some point. Though next time he comes back, he should be like I don't know, some other accent, wildly American, like deep South American, just a cowboy hat and everything, and just every
like
time
Lester?
They bring him back, he's aping some other little. Thing.
I would love to hear Neil Patrick Harris bless your little heart. To the Doctor.
Yes.
Bless your sweet little heart, Doctor. That would be quite brilliant. I think you're right. He should appropriate another culture every time
Yeah.
he comes on screen. I agree.
I don't know how often they'll be able to afford Neil Patrick Harris, but
He
I
seems to be a fan. He seemed to enjoy himself. And I'll just say that you know,
mean, I think I read somewhere that he hadn't even heard of the show when they contacted him. He's
no, but
like,
he seems to
Doctor
be a
what?
fan now. But that's the thing. I think it's exciting that, like, to me, that's something I don't know why, but I feel like Doctor Who, to me, if it's part of the excitement is introducing more people to Doctor Who, because it only gets weirder the more you get into it. And
Yeah.
so
And we've always been sitting around wanting to see Doogie Howser versus Doctor Who.
yeah. And this by far is the weirdest Doctor Who I've ever seen as far as my Doctor Who journeys have taken me. This is the weirdest Doctor Who, and it was the coolest, one of the coolest Doctor Who's.
I'd have to think about that. I don't know which one is the weird Doctor Who.
I said
One,
one of the weirdest. There are
one of
lots of
them,
weird
yeah.
episodes.
I mean, one could argue Web of Fear, or no, sorry,
I guess.
Web
Oh,
of Fear, pretty damn weird.
Sorry, new qualifier. This is one of the weirdest Doctor Who's since the classic Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's and it. Oh, and there were like little things. I don't know if you noticed that. Murray Gold put in a few kind of like synthy sounds that sounded similar to like 60s Doctor Who.
Oh, I did catch that he brought back his unit theme. But,
oh yeah, I did see that too.
Oh, it's the Murray Gold unit theme. But that was the only thing I think I was too busy watching the episode to analyze the music too much. So
gotcha. Well, I've watched it 3 times, Brian. I'm a madman. I'm a crazy person. So
I'm at 1.5 times. And that half was only because I needed to eat dinner. But
I cried every single time too. Watching it with my mom and my sister was the most cries because they were crying. We were all crying. We got all teary eyed.
Okay. Well, good. That's good, because I was like, the first time through, I felt like I enjoyed it, and it was very my brain was definitely fizzing with all sorts of ideas, but I felt like I didn't actually feel like I was as emotionally engaged as Russell wanted me to be with it on an emotional level. But I'm glad that other people were, and that it was not a failing of the episode, but probably just because I was so busy analyzing all the little other stuff.
No, but I think it builds. I think up upon third, or if you do give it another 1 or 2 watches, I think it builds. I feel like there's something about it. Well, maybe we'll unlock some of those things in this discussion.
Yeah. No, I've already got a viewing date set up with my best friend to rewatch it. So
excellent.
But yes, I guess let's see. Shall we talk about
your best friend, who I know also?
Yes.
And her name's not Donna. But it's cool that Donna is now the established best friend of the Doctor. The most best friend.
Really? Okay. I did they say that? I missed that.
That's how I felt.
That's how you felt. Okay.
Yeah, like
is that how things are established now, by feelings?
That's what you're here to do. Is you're here to check my feels here. You gotta calm me down. I get excited.
I think we can say we now know which is the favorite incarnation of the Doctor.
That's true.
That's pretty definite.
I'll tell you something funny. Since we're already all over the place to begin with, I'll just say that the same thing happened to me that happened to, I don't know why, my sister mourned for the 10th Doctor throughout all of series 5. She was upset. She would like, and a lot of, I saw this, back in the early
series 5 is the first Matt Smith,
from Tennant to Smith.
Yeah.
I was already in bed with Matt Smith. Like, I was ready to go with the 11th Doctor. I was like,
you wouldn't want to get in bed with that guy.
No, but what I loved about the 11th Doctor was just that it really felt like the Doctor had let go of all that baggage that 10 carried. 10 carried a lot of baggage. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, like the whole universe was on his shoulders. So it's so weird, but in a weird, in a weird way, that's the feeling I get with 15. 15 just kind of came alive, like this whole, like in a way that like kind of reminded me of the 11th Doctor and how he was just like kind of excited to be the Doctor. Like, he's excited to be like in a new setting. And I think that's what we're going to get. It feels like the same vibe, if you will,
Yeah.
that transition. And it's quite appropriate that David Tennant gets to do it again, because again, he chews angst so well. So he brought that angst. He brought all of the angst from the 11th Doctor all the way to the 14th Doctor, right? Really well.
Yeah. Though if every time the Doctor is feeling ultra angsty, he regenerates into the David Tennant incarnation, why didn't he do that right after the Time War? Why was Eccleston in there? So
Eccleston was the happy Doctor after the I think it's always like a pouty doctor, a happy Doctor, and then a pouty Doctor.
I mean, there's definitely it's not 100%, but there's definitely a certain pattern of grumpy Doctor, bouncy Doctor, grumpy Doctor, bouncy Doctor.
Yeah, it's true. So I think there's like a pattern. You need a bouncy Doctor after a lot of grump.
Yeah.
But 13 wasn't grumpy. 13 was just like kind of chill, and I appreciate that more and more.
She was pretty bouncy.
She was bouncy at times, but I don't know. She was kind of low. She was like low key bouncy. I don't know. She was different bouncy. Well, she was like recovering from the 12th Doctor. Anyone recovering from the 12th Doctor would be weird. Yeah. That's a lot of recovery. That's why the 14th Doctor is going to just like live out 100 years with Donna. Healing the 15th Doctor.
Yeah, well, I do at some point. I do want to speculate on what this retirement is going to look like, but yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that, but I think it's not a retirement, actually. Anyways, let's go.
Yeah. So I did feel like I've been slacking on the Who News section of this podcast lately, but I did feel it was worth mentioning that there's going to be an animated version of the original The Celestial Toymaker story, and I think I got a picture for that one.
Yes.
And BBC just announced that there's going to be coming to DVD and not their streaming service, at least not immediately. And this is going to be the first one that's much more clearly 3D CGI rather than the kind of 2D animations that they've been doing up until this point. I have noticed there's a little bit of negative feedback from people on the look of this reconstruction. And I will admit it's certainly stylized. And I don't know. I was really kind of like, hey, uncanny, creepy CGI faces. But we shall see. I'll certainly get it and watch it because I want them to keep doing reconstructions. I just I'm not entirely sold on whether the 3D ones are better than the 2D ones. So.
I don't know. It kind of looks kind of definitely is a stylized look, but it doesn't bother me much. I don't know. Yeah. I think especially I would probably myself watch the 2D version more because I just like seeing like the performances and stuff. And since there's something about that kind of like, what is it, like it's a video-y quality, because these weren't like they weren't taped on film, right? They were these Doctor Who's were on video, like on a kind of video.
Yeah, they were
video, right?
Almost everything in Doctor Who was shot on videotape during the 60s. The action sequences were occasionally shot on film so that they could, because it's much easier to edit those. Whereas the videotape was edited live as they were recording. Cut to camera 1, cut to camera 2, cut to camera 3. But the film, the fight scenes would sometimes be shot on film so that they could cut up the film and rearrange it and do we want a close up here and a shot of the knife, and so they could do that rapid cutting that you couldn't do with a live editing setup.
I love going back to those, and I like watching like the streaks, like when the CCD like system was overloaded and you see like a a streak,
Oh
or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
like a light streak and stuff. So
yeah.
I love all that stuff. So I'd
Um,
rather watch that. But this is cool. I mean, I wish the animation style was something more. I don't know. I kind of like wish it was more like the was it Shada that did those cool like more like
Shada did some, yeah, kind of 2D animation.
yeah, I liked a
Um,
lot of that stuff. It was very
yeah,
stylized. The doctor looked kind of dark and like lanky. I forget. Like there was some weird
yeah.
stylistic
I
thing they're
mean,
doing.
they're all a little stylized, but
Yeah.
all the other reconstructions up until this point have been done with computers, but using a sort of 2D animation style program, program that makes it all look like it's an old hand drawn 2D, or at least
Oh, I see.
kind of
I
more
haven't
like
seen any of the reconstructions. Oh my
Oh,
gosh, I should
okay.
check them out. Yeah.
I think several of them are available for free on Tubi.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
so with commercials, but they're there. I don't know if they have all the reconstructions, but they have several of them.
Well,
Um,
I haven't seen the original Celestial Toymaker since I was a kid, so I'll probably
I
watch this
mean, how did
recreation.
you? They didn't really even release it until like until the 90s, but
I feel like then in that case,
because the first 3 episodes are lost, so all the one that exists is episode 4, and they released episode 4 in a sort of lost collection, what I think in the late
I
90s.
just remember something about it on PBS, but it could have
Yeah.
been like when the 90s and the 80s kind of meshed together at my I'm 45 now, so it's like maybe I saw it in the 90s, but I don't remember I thought it was one of the ones recovered that
No,
someone found. No, oh, okay.
I mean they have
Okay.
one episode that they recovered. I can't quite remember
Gotcha. Okay.
when, but
Because
that,
I remember there were a bunch of recoveries, and then I think we've talked about this before, but there was like this weird rumor or like idea that the Doctor Who signals would bounce back to Earth from the
oh,
asteroid belt, and
yeah.
that we would get the lost episodes, at least the video part of the lost episodes, and be able to reconstruct them with
Well,
computers.
sadly, the asteroid belt's only a few light days out, so that bounce back would have occurred
Is that
decades
right?
ago.
Is it already happened? Damn.
Now, maybe there's, if there's
What
some
about the
other,
Oort cloud? Has it hit the Oort cloud yet?
yeah, I still think that's only like a year or two, something away. So
It's
it's
lost
way,
forever. Sorry, guys. No hope to
yeah. I
get
mean,
back.
Alpha Centauri is 4 light years away, so they're watching TV from 4 years ago on Alpha Centauri. So.
If aliens arrive, imagine that they give us a gift like of Doctor Who, the complete series. Like they're just like, hey, this got broadcast to our planet, and we brought it back to you intact in its entirety, and it's like magically upgraded to like 4K because of their technology.
We reached out to your planet and selected one good-hearted human on your planet and read their mind to see what your planet most needs. And we were prepared to bring you world peace and unlimited food and housing, but it turned out that what you really wanted were all those lost Doctor Who episodes.
Who says?
So here you go.
That's funny. There's there's not just one mind that wants that. It would be like,
Oh
there'd
no!
be a
I mean,
lot
every
of
time I
that.
think, what would I do with the time machine? Go back and videotape Lost Doctor Who. It always seems to bubble to the top of the list. So anyway, yes, there's a reconstruction. I'll definitely be getting it because even if you're a little even if you think the CGI is a bit nightmare fuel, I will encourage people to throw some money at them and get a copy, because the only way we're going to get all the other reconstructions is if we keep supporting the process. So, and this is the sort of thing where there's not all that many people buying these things relatively. This is not the new 4K release of The Abyss or something that came out this month. It's a
Speaking
lot
of nightmare
more.
fuel, I guess it is appropriate that the animation style's nightmare fuel because those dolls were creepy AF.
Yes.
The Stooky family. Oh man.
Yes.
Good grief.
Well, yes. Let's talk a little bit about today's episode, The Giggle.
The Giggle.
The Giggle was
That
released.
is heard forever in your
Yes.
TV. It's
I mean, silence. Whatever the hell you want.
we have a lot of visual things to worry about. We have angels. If we see an image of an angel, then we'll become an angel. It'll
And the silence can get on our television sets and tell us what to do, and we'll do it.
and now there's freaking Stooky Bill laughing or singing in Arpeggio. What the hell? It's like scary.
Television is very scary. Especially all the little people that they keep trapped in there who perform all the stuff. So yes, it was released by the BBC on December 9th, 2023 AD in the Humanian era. And it was written by Russell T Davies. It's space-time coordinates. It takes place in 3 locations in space-time. The earliest one is Earth, 1925 AD, which is the point at which the television was first projected, I guess. Transmitted.
I guess that was the test. Stooky
Yeah.
Bill was like the test, and then the actual first broadcast was a lady, and I forget my history. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. They called it television, which sort of implies a broadcast to me, but maybe I misunderstood things. So maybe it was just wired. But
oh no, I think that was a broadcast that we were witnessing. But I'm just saying, I think the actual like public display.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That was like one of his tests. Was like a thing called, I don't remember. I'm sorry. It was like, I remember Russell T Davies found out what the lore behind it or what was like going on behind it. And I know that he went nuts, and that's why Stooky Bill became a big deal. And now it is actually. I'm scared as AF of Stooky Bill. Thank you for the nightmare fuel, Russell T Davies. Thank you, RTD.
Thank you for that useful spending of Disney money to scare me.
It's very scary. I see him everywhere now. No, I'm just kidding.
And then some of it is set in London of 2023 AD, which is weird because if it's 15 years after Donna lost her memory, then it's 2024. But the doctor said they're a few days late, not a year early. And there's not 2 Donnas running around, one of whom doesn't remember the doctor. So how could it be 2023 if it was 2024 when they left?
Well, clearly a year was plucked out of the timeline. and so like we'll find out, but
I don't think you appreciate the mavity of the situation.
I guess I don't.
History's being screwed with.
Well, there is actually an episode perhaps explanation, because apparently the Toymaker's been messing around with the doctor and screwing around with the timeline, because the Toymaker could do anything. He says that in the card game. He mentions a couple of
he says I turned your history into a jigsaw, which I assume he means jigsaw puzzle, as opposed to a literal jigsaw that you use for cutting curves. Maybe I'm misinterpreting that. Maybe he made it into a weapon to slice something up in a 4-dimensional sense. But that would actually be a lot more interesting, as the doctor's biodata is a complex space-time event that has been shaped into a 4-dimensional weapon that will slice some other 4-dimensional object. But I think I'm reading way too much into that.
It kind of is that this other that came from this other dimension, the timeless child that became the doctor. It's possible that the Toymaker, which is an entity or an elemental, I guess, as was described, could have just voila, and then the whole entire thing is like somehow that explains some of the discontinuity. So the Toymaker could be the fix, if you will, to Doctor Who continuists,
So we needed the Toymaker at the end to say, no, I am your father to the Doctor.
Exactly. That's exactly it now. But
I mean, we know the timeless.
I just think that's go ahead, sorry.
It seems like the timeless child came from another universe. The Toymaker comes from another universe.
However, I think the Toymaker comes from a different universe than wherever the timeless child came from. So
I mean, that's certainly possible. There are lots of them out there. I'm just
but
pointing
just
out
like remember when the Not Things, they were just so like excited about whatever the Doctor is, and even like I mean, think about it. Like even the Gallifreyans exploited this like being for the ability to regenerate, and that changed the course of Time Lord, everything from that. So it's like there's something. I think maybe the other. It could be that the timeless child might be it. There could be a son, father, daughter, being, child thing going on with whatever the Doctor is, wherever they're from. It could be whatever the same thing that this Toymaker's from, like this elemental dimension of like, the Toymaker is just one of many, I think. This is the celestial Toymaker, as you said, right? Like, but there are other Toymakers.
There are other Toymakers, and there are other Guardians and stuff, and
right.
we'll definitely begin digging into that.
They reference the Guardians. There's the Black Guardian, the White Guardian. There's like
the Red Guardian,
the
Crystal Guardian.
Yes, that's right. Well, the Black Guardian's my favorite because he's like a dead crow on his head, right? Is there?
I don't know. I guess they all have dead birds on their head, but I'm not sure which ones. I know the White Guardian has a dove.
Oh, you're right. It's true. I forgot that there was
the
also
Black Guardian has a raven, I think.
A raven.
Or a crow or
what
something.
Did the Red
I'm
Guardian
not sure
what
the others do. And so what bird would you assign to our Toymaker?
Cuckoo bird.
Cuckoo bird.
Yes, that would be the appropriate bird for this Toymaker.
Not but peacock.
Sorry. Yes, no, actually, you're right. It's probably peacock is a better bird for this Toymaker.
And then this so we took place in London and England in two places, but we've also got the Toymaker's toy room, which after the Toymaker became obsessed with games, because he wasn't always obsessed with games, the Toymaker created his own universe in what we've learned is a hollow beneath the dark under universe. And if you're wondering, well, what's the under universe? That's where the vampires come from. So, like, apparently we've got the universe, normal space universe that we think of as the Prime Doctor Who universe, and then underneath that we have the vampire universe, where all the vampires come from and kind of get involved and cause problems in normal universe. And then under that, there's a hollow which has the toy room, the Toymaker's toy room. If you want to get to the Toymaker, you got to go through some vampires. So, how that ties to that black void we were in the previous episode, I'm not entirely sure.
Well, it's a place where the walls are thin, between those, the under, universe and all that stuff. That remember, we don't have the math to explain it, but it all works out if you know Campbellian flat math. So
yes, which states emphatically that the universe has 9 corners. And if you were curious, I did a little research since last week.
Oh wow!
And there are 9 corners to the Doctor Who universe.
Wow!
And in order to get into that black void we see, you have to find one of those corners to get out. But yeah, I don't know if all the corners lead to the same place or if each corner leads to a different place. So, anyway, the Toymaker is actually from, chronologically speaking, the previous universe. because Doctor Who's cosmology works on kind of a big bang, and then the universe collapses, and then it bangs again, and then it collapses. So you end up with these universes like beads on a string. And the Toymaker actually originates from the previous universe. And he brought with him a bunch of the space-time of his previous universe, which allows him, which I assume is what's filling his toy room. And so he carries it around with him so that he can exist, and it allows him to use a bunch of his powers and stuff. And sometimes he calls the toy room the toy shop, depending on which iteration it is. He has to rebuild it every now and then. Sometimes when he rebuilds it, he renames it. Apparently, according to another story, beyond the walls of the toy shop or the toy room is a void that just loops back on itself. So if you walk out into it, you just find yourself coming right back into in the direction you just left, walking right back where you came. The reason the Toymaker has to remake this toy room every now and then is because anytime he loses a game, his whole toy room is destroyed. And if there's any people in there, they all get killed too. The Toymaker doesn't die, but he does have to rebuild his universe from scratch. So there are some stakes for him losing these games. He doesn't lose very often. In fact, I think they quoted them in thousands of years since he lost at one point in one of the stories. But
it'd be cool if they added the layer that every time he wins, his universe actually gets bigger.
That could be interesting. I mean, yeah. I suppose that would encroach on the vampires first before it started causing a problem for normal space. So vampires versus Toymakers.
I'm sure he'd love that.
That is the most pretentious, overly serious form of monster with the most silly and irreverent monster. Duking it out on a war in... I guess you wouldn't really call it a war in heaven because it's all under stuff. I guess you'd call it a war in hell. Anyway, so yes, we visit those three spots because the Doctor says, "Oh, we're in the Toymaker's realm" when he runs through the door. And luckily for the Doctor, the Toymaker decides to let him go back to 2023 rather than keep him in the realm, because that's generally the Toymaker shtick in most other stories, is once he gets you in the realm, you can't get out, and he does not you have to play games to get out. If you don't win the game, you don't get out. So it's I thought, oh well, that was easy. I was wondering how they were going to get out of that, but it turns out the Toymaker is so starved for a good game, he's just going to let him get out. Shall we talk about what has gone before? Because there is some history behind the Toymaker and his interactions with the Doctor.
Yes.
Okay. So, everyone, you're all thinking, oh, you're going to start with the Celestial Toymaker, the 1966 story. No. Because if you actually watch it, Celestial Toymaker, the Doctor says he's met the Toymaker before, and they have had problems before. This is not their first encounter in 1966. And so, Expanded Universe is going to expand. So somebody, Gary Russell, who's a lovely man, I went on a sea cruise with him once, wrote Divided Loyalties, probably one of his less popular novels, to put it politely. I'm not even sure if he likes it, but called And Divided Loyalties is both a sequel and a prequel to the Celestial Toymaker. On the primary bulk of the novel is the Fifth Doctor and Tegan and Adric and Nyssa get pulled into the Toymaker's shenanigans and have a bunch of problems and have to, jump through the usual hoops. However, there's a giant flashback that's like multiple chapters long in the middle of the book where the Fifth Doctor flashes back to his first visit with the Toymaker. And it turns out that was a very pivotal moment, one of the most pivotal moments in the pre-Renegade Doctor's life. Probably, almost certainly the most pivotal moment in the Hartnell Doctor's life. And what happens in the flashback is when the Doctor is reached the Gallifreyan holiday of Otherstide, which happens to be his birthday, or name day as they call it, and he's turning 200 years old, which makes him officially an adult, albeit a very young adult. It's very much like getting, being 18 or something in Earth, in U.S. culture. Very much a young adult, but still, if you shoot somebody in the head, you will be tried as an adult. So, kind of thing. He's at this point, he's spent decades studying at the Time Academy, and he's still there, and he still hasn't even gotten his symbiotic nuclei. So he's not even a junior Time Lord at this point. But the Doctor has been very rebellious and not getting along, ignoring messages and instructions from his house, the House of Lungbarrow. And the school finally gets fed up and tells him that if he doesn't start like acknowledging and paying attention to the instructions of his of the Kithriarch of his family, which is the leader of the House Lungbarrow, they are going to kick him out of the Time Academy. And his family wants him to come back for his birthday to the house and meet with them there. And was planning not to, but then the Academy says, you got to go. So the Doctor returns to Mount Lung, where the eponymous House of Lungbarrow is located. And he is just miserable. And he's suffering. He describes it later as his darkest day. And I think it was the third Doctor described it as that being his darkest day. So all the other days you saw on TV were not as dark as this, apparently. I don't know. It didn't really seem like it was all that dark. It just seemed like usual angsty, I hate my parents kind of teenager stuff when I read the book. But and he goes there he goes back to Mount Lung, but then he doesn't go to see his family in the house. Instead, he goes and visits the decorative hermit who lives on the property behind the house up the hill. And yeah, decorative hermits used to be a thing on Earth, and it's kind of sad and disturbing, and now and they were a thing on Gallifrey too. They would hire decorative hermits to just live on the property and be all hermity. And
I wouldn't mind the job of a decorative hermit. Could I just watch Doctor Who and Star Trek all day? And
I think you had to like sit out there and be like a Zen master and be,
I see. Can I do that while watching Doctor Who?
I suppose you could put some earpods in and listen to Big Finish or something. Get the sonic sunglasses on, so you.
There you go. That's even better.
This is our decorative hermit. Take the sunglasses off. I swear. So he goes to the decorative hermit and he just pours out how his family keeps obsessively pushing him to become a Time Lord and how he doesn't want to become a Time Lord. And he doesn't want to be a Lord and he doesn't want to serve on the High Council, but he's his whole generation was loomed to the whole generation of his that he was a part of was loomed to create the next batches of Lord Presidents to replace the current batches that were getting very old. And so there was this great, and the family was really gambling a whole lot and spent a whole bunch of money and called in all their favors because the family was not a very powerful or well-respected family at this point. And it was considered a bit of House Lungbarrow was considered a bit of a joke. And they burned basically all their social capital to get the Doctor into the Time Academy so that he could become a Time Lord. And he's like not skipping tests and doing badly on them and just kind of blowing the whole thing off. And so the family threatens to expel him from the family, which means he would have no name if he doesn't get his shit together, is what they are saying. And he gets he gets so upset about this because, he's like, well, everyone's forcing me to do the thing I don't want to do. So he goes to the hermit and he just dumps all of this into the hermit's lap in a big long rant and tells all the problems he's got. And then he just sits there, and the hermit, who he's known for years at this point, by the way, I should say, it's not like they're strangers. And the hermit just like telepathically shows him what this little flower looks like on the ground. And you're thinking, wait a minute, isn't this a Buddhist parable? It is. You are correct. And he looks at the flower, and the doctor sees the flower through his eyes and realizes the wonderful, boundless enlightenment joy of life that I guess can only be found through true Buddhism. And it rejuvenates him, and it makes him decide that he wants to explore the universe and see the universe and get off Gallifrey, which indirectly means he's going to have to become a Time Lord, because that's how you make a TARDIS work. And so he runs off, and you're like, what does this have to do with the Celestial Toymaker? I'm getting there. He runs back to his friends. He's part of a little club of called the Deca, and it's all very Harry Potter. And that includes the Master and the War Chief and the Rani and the meddling monk and some other Time Lords, as Deca implies. There's 10. And he goes back to them and he's like, we've got to do something impressive. We should go out there. And so him and the Master illegally wire themselves into the Matrix and steal a bunch of secret Time Lord files, though it will later turn out those Time Lord files were deliberately ceded to them by the Celestial Intervention Agency as sort of a test. And if you want to see that Division is pulling strings behind the here, you're welcome to do so. And the files include records about the Celestial Toymaker and Rassilon's meeting with him. And they decide, some of these kids decide they're going to go find the Celestial Toymaker. That's what we'll do. So they go so the Doctor and Raylon and Millennia steal a Type 18 TARDIS with the help of Magnus. So Magnus doesn't go with them, but he does help them steal the TARDIS. And they go off to the Toymaker's domain, the hollow in the Under-Universe. It does not go well. The Toymaker ensnares them, starts doing the whole game thing, and the Raylon and Millennial are basically trapped, and the Doctor turns around and runs, jumps back in the TARDIS, and flees the Toymaker's domain before the Toymaker can get his claws into him. And he arrives back on Gallifrey in his stolen Type 18 TARDIS with two of his classmates gone and probably turned into dolls. This is not a good look.
We could have been looking. Could that be who? What was it? Sticky Bill? Was it? Stooky Bill. Yeah. And Stooky Bill's wife and Stooky Bill's kids. Could they all have been Time Lords?
Raylon and Millennia.
Oh my gosh.
Could be. I can't quite remember the details about if they get saved or if they stay Toymaker toys in the fifth Doctor half of the story. So yeah, he gets back and yeah, well, the Hermit is fired by oh god, what's his name? I'm forgetting. Quences, Kithriarch Quences, head of the House of Lungbarrow, fires the Hermit over this. Not that the Hermit said go steal a Type 18 TARDIS and face down a god, but he just said look at this daisy. But that's all he said. But he gets fired, and the Doctor ends up being put on trial for the death of Raylon and Millennia. And Barusa, his mentor, is held partially responsible for these crimes. And eventually, Raylon and Millennial's records end up being erased from Gallifreyan history. So there's now no records they ever existed. So they won't inspire other students to do naughty things. And the Doctor is expelled from the Time Academy and is sentenced to 500 years of service in the records and traffic control areas of Gallifrey. There is a provision slipped in there that if he can obtain his doctorate in his spare time through night school, then he can reapply to the Time Academy and maybe then become a Time Lord. So when the Doctor said, when Romana says that the Doctor barely squeaked by on his second attempt, that's what she's referring to. Is that he had to go, he didn't take 500 years to get his doctorate. It was less time than that, but it was several decades of serving as a plebeian Gallifreyan before he was allowed back into the Time Academy and given a second chance.
What a rough young life the Doctor had.
Yes. And meanwhile, the Guardians and other great old ones hear all about this in the sixfold realm. This crazy Time Lord kid who showed up at a Type 18 TARDIS and got away from the Toymaker gets people talking at that higher level, and these higher beings will now begin to start following and haunting the Doctor through his lives because of the attention he drew to himself after this stunt. So yes, when the Hartnell Doctor meets the Toymaker, and there's all this like, oh, we meet again, Doctor, baggage hanging over it. That's what they're talking about. So, and it's a story that, is stretched through multiple medias. I mean, yes, its most detailed telling is in Divided Loyalties, but you also see the story with the Hermit told in much more detail in The Time Monster with John Pertwee, the TV episode. So, the Celestial Toymaker comes along about when the Doctor's about 448 years old, so about 248, about a little less than 250 years after his first encounter with the Toymaker. He runs into the Toymaker again with Stephen and Dodo, and this time they don't realize what they've gotten themselves into until they're outside the TARDIS, and the Toymaker hides the TARDIS this time so that they can't go back to it. And that's the story that they're currently getting ready to release the reanimated version of. The very general gist of it is the Toymaker makes them play all sorts of strange and bizarre and very unfair games in order to escape. So, and I'm sure you can look up the information on Celestial Toymaker anywhere. So, that is what has gone before. There are also numerous, like probably 10 other encounters in the expanded universe between the Doctor and the Toymaker in various audio, comics, novels, all sorts and stuff like that. So, that's a scene from the Celestial Toymaker, and there you can see the original cringy racist Toymaker. Thankfully, the actor,
I guess, which now it's reinforced that the character is cringy and does this. So who knows what
it's interesting. Like, it wasn't. There was a lot of debate about just how racist that outfit was, because the actor does not play him as Mandarin at all. There's no attempt at an accent.
He's just wearing the dress.
But I mean, you could put any outfit on him and it wouldn't have changed anything else in the story. His performance is not tied to the outfit. Nothing directly references that outfit in the story. And so there was a kind of maybe it's just an outfit, but yes, it's a white guy in the outfit. However, the guy who wrote this episode did the novelization. And if you read his novelization, it's clear that he wanted things to be a bit more Mandarin-y than it ended up being on screen. So if you're asking what was the intention with that outfit, this is it becomes very clear that the word celestial is referring to as something from Asia, from the Eastern Asia kind of meaning of the word celestial there, not cosmic or heavenly as it is, as most people, including myself for most of my life, assumed.
That's what I assumed as well.
Yes. So that's why you don't really see the word celestial being thrown around all that much in the Giggle. But it does look like they've kept the outfit for the reanimation. And I mean, I don't know, given that it's going to be tacked on with a black and white episode of the actual video, I guess that makes sense. So I don't know. How do you feel about this particular version of the Celestial Toymaker? What's your opinion on this outfit and this
I
name?
think that like you know, I probably wouldn't have had a problem with it as a kid, even or a teenager. I guess 96 is when I was looking it up. It was like probably when I would have been exposed to the Celestial Toymaker and my Doctor Whoing. So that would have been teenage years. I probably wouldn't have had a problem with it. Like, I feel like the idea of the melting pot was more of a thing that I grew up around, where it was like people should explore other cultures and immerse themselves in them. But what he's doing is obviously a mockery, but that's that's the character. So I think now that we've seen another example of that with Neil Patrick Harris's depiction of the Toymaker being like a caricature of the German culture, I think now we can say that that's just like what the Toymaker does. So like he's going to somehow mock a culture that the Doctor probably loves. And that's probably what he's doing. Or like whoever, whatever, for whatever reason. It doesn't even have to have a reason, because he's this elemental that doesn't really understand empathy or he even says it in the thing. He's like, what you're seeing is just a mask upon a vastness that only cares about win or lose. That's what the Celestial Toymaker is. So in a way, the Celestial Toymaker maybe different people see him differently. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing to think about. Lots of thoughts.
Yeah.
But I would say that like this, at least, to go back to your Q thing, which again, Doctor Who did it first. When we say Q, we're just like kind of we're condensing a framework, right? Like to try to explain what the celestial, how do you explain what an elemental is, right? Like you have to kind of use other frameworks. So yeah, I see this character being a lot like Q, where we're never going to understand fully the reasoning behind their actions. Like why does Q do why did Q have a child? Like why is Q following the Picard family? That's a creepy uncle. A creepy uncle. The Doctor's a good uncle. Q's a creepy uncle. And it's neat that they've reintroduced the Toymaker and elementals, if you will. And I heard we're going into kind of like a fantasy direction, because just I don't think part of me hopes we never fully figure out what the Doctor is or where they're from. But I like getting teased to the point where like, oh, this is interesting. So, it might be interesting to explore the relationship between whatever the Doctor is and what these elementals might be, because they have been following the Doctor around, and like there is an interest there, and the Doctor can defeat them. And again, going back to something Russell T Davies invented, the meta crisis. I just think this whole episode is the ultimate meta episode of Doctor Who of the modern era. I think it's a wildest, going back to just the wildest thing I've ever seen. But I go off track, Brian. Let's get me back on track.
Well, hey, you wanted to read us the story summary?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. All right, here, let me hide this slide here, and I think we have to put this slide right. Yeah, here we go. All right. Donna and the Doctor arrive in 2023-24 AD, discover that humanity has gone full libertarian. Okay, this is not the BBC summary. This works about as well as you'd expect. They figure out that it's a conceptual influence being generated by the idea of television and nip back to 1925 AD to find the Toymaker is responsible for all of it. The Doctor and the Toymaker agree to play a game in 2023. The Toymaker kills the Doctor, and he bi-generates into Ncuti Gatwa and the fourth David Tennant Doctor. That's true. I forgot it's a bi-generation. They play ball, and the Toymaker loses. The Doctor, yeah, how could you fight two doctors in their first 12 hours of regeneration? Forget it. The Doctor demands that the Toymaker never return to normal space. They smack the TARDIS and invoke Toymaker rationality. This splits the TARDIS into two identical time ships. As per tradition, the extra 10th Doctor pairs off with the former RTD companion, and the new Doctor heads off into a new era of adventure. That's perfect. That's so good. That's like the perfect summary. You should. That's like it actually does quite good.
Well, thank you. I threw it together rather in a hurry. So yes. Yeah, well, let's talk characters. Obviously, we have the David Tennant Doctor here in two David Tennant incarnations. We have the David Tennant Doctor, the 10th Doctor Mark III. Reminding again that there's the Mark I 10th Doctor that came from Eccleston, the Mark II 10th Doctor that came from the Meta Crisis, the Mark III 10th Doctor that came from Jodie Whittaker, and now we have the Mark IV 10th Doctor who came from the Mark III 10th Doctor.
I think this Doctor's getting a bit narcissistic.
He really doesn't want to go.
He did say it's time this time. and
then he didn't go.
And he didn't go.
I really should go, and then he doesn't go. It's like that Christmas song.
It's brilliant. It's so good. It's so
good. So yes, we've got but yes, we get his potentially last outing. He says he's 1 billion years old. At first I said, oh, is this a reference to Capaldi's Doctor being stuck, dying and being recreated for billions of years? But
I forgot about that.
Then I thought, no, what he's referring to is the whole timeless child thing. That's all those Morbius doctors, the fugitive doctors, the timeless child,
the Valyard.
Well, I think the Valyard's still in the future, in my opinion.
I'm still lighting a candle for the Valyard.
Well, Michael Jaston did a War Doctors audio about 5 years ago, so it's not like he still comes back and does the role when they ask. He just has to stand there and look good in robes, I guess.
That's true.
So that's how I took I can't remember if he said billion years old or billions, plural of years old.
I can't remember, but I think he might have said billions. He might have said billions.
I didn't get a chance to go back and look at it. It's worth noting that Rassilon says that Time Lord history covers 1 billion years. Which is much higher than all the other numbers. The 6th Doctor said that Time Lord history is only 10 million years. I think they imply in a couple of other stories that it's 2 million years. Other times they say it's thousands and thousands of years. But this time it's 10 million. This time it was 1 billion when Rassilon said it. And if the Timeless Child was around for that whole time, which is a whole other question as to whether or not then the Timeless Child would end up being 1 billion years old. So I wanted to check that fact, and I just ran out of time before recording to pin that down. But what did you think of David Tennant's last outing?
I liked it because it kind of it did something really cool that I didn't expect to be as touched by as I was, which is to give that whole era I guess, now we have the classic Doctor Who, and now we have, what would we call them, the era, the first from Russell T Davies to Chris Chibnall, what would we call that era? Because it is I feel like this,
I always called it New Who, but
so then there's New Who, and now it's Doctor Who: The Next Generation. I'm just gonna call
usually
it.
Disney Who is I think is.
I don't want to call it Disney Who. I think it's still very, very Doctor Who British, not Disney, whatever.
I agree.
We'll take the Disney money. Don't get me wrong. I like the Disney money, but I'm just saying, Doctor Who has 60 years of Britishness, I guess you could say, or like worldness. Because like my parents, I think it was being broadcast in Pakistan when they were in the 60s or 70s. I'm not sure. But they knew
Disney does British just fine. Remember Mary Poppins? All those completely legitimate accents.
I guess. Well, Julie Andrews is British.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, there you go. So I guess that's okay. No, they all are, but I guess I would just say, I'm not trying to say that. I just mean to say that like Disney's just, it's, Russell T Davies said something about like he could see Neil Patrick Harris as being a doctor if they ever did an American production. So to him, even, I think he sees it as something very like international British, like not USA. Yeah. Like it's not Star Trek. It's its own thing. Like it's not Star Trek. It's not Star Wars. So America's got
saying it's
two powerhouses.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's contaminated by Disney. I'm just saying that that's the term I see being thrown around on the internet when they want to talk about the new era. They say Disney, because you can't call it the Russell T Davies era. That's confusing. You can't call it New Who era because that's confusing. And post Chibnall seems
anyways
weird.
to say about David Tennant, because we're talking about the performances, I guess what I mean to say is that like I thought it was appropriate to close off the previous era, that like it's like the Doctor has entered its have your cake and eat it too era, and I love it because it's like this is kind of like, I love that scene when the 15th Doctor just like holds the 14th or the 15th, the 14th, 15th Doctor. What we call him, the 10th Mark IV, the 10-4. 10-4 Doctor. Buddy. 10-4. Yeah, 10-4, buddy. But anyways, I just thought it was great because ever since the 9th Doctor said in the the church during the episode where what were they called, the things that correct stitch time together, the Reapers. Antibody. What are they?
Weren't they the Reapers?
The Reapers, yeah. Like in the episode with Rose's dad, like in the chapel.
Yeah.
And he says something like wonderful. I can't remember it word for word, but something wonderful like, this is why I do this, so that you can have like a regular life. It's something I could never have, and it's always like and it's true that the 15th Doctor like pegged it. He's like, you've never taken a break. Now you have the opportunity. We've had a bi-generation. This is something that previously was thought to be a myth, but we did it. We created a bi-generation. Like, go take a break. And Russell T Davies even said, like, the 10th Doctor's just parked. Don't worry. Like, it's not like a retirement. It's just the 10th Doctor's just parked. He's doing that for now. That's what the 10th Doctor, or sorry, the 14th Doctor, the 14th, 15th, 15 Mark 1, 15 and a half. I don't know what you call it. And I did love the idea that they're because we could already, I mean, it's already silly the kind of hoops we have to jump through to get like multi-Doctor stories going. So it's like, I think bi-generation was the best thing, the coolest, newest, shiniest thing that we've ever seen. Like, it's a neat idea.
I mean, on one hand,
an instant spin-off television series. Like,
on one hand, I know the writers at Big Finish were sitting around going, all right, whole new era for us to explore.
Totally, it's true. It's true. No, I like it. I like that David Tennant got to do that, and he got to do little things differently, which I appreciated. Like, it's basically the same. It was a weird thing because, not to get meta, but it was weird to like he got to like take the sacrifice this time. Like, he like jumped in front of the, usually the companion or someone's trying to save him, and he actually got to do it. Like, he like takes the whole beam, and then, I like that he even tells Donna, he's like, it's not really a death, like, don't worry, I'm just like, I love the whole thing. And Mel like having to pull him apart, like, it's different this time. It was like, just, I don't know, it was really well done. But he also had his different lines this time. He gets to say Alonzi, which is like his catchphrase.
Yeah.
The doctor stopped, the 11th Doctor stopped saying Geronimo after a while, right? Did he say it all the way till the end?
I thought he
feel like
did,
he
but I
did.
wasn't really
Maybe he
keeping
did.
score. But
I
I
feel
just
like
sort of,
he said Geronimo less, and there was something else that he replaced it with, but I can't remember at the moment.
I do know they tried to make him more angsty and less bouncy with mixed results as the show, as the series, as his era went on. But so dropping Geronimo might have been
Might
something
have
they
been
did
something.
to reinforce that.
In
Um,
hindsight, like, I think he just felt bad about, and I think that's the other thing that was really cool about this episode, is like there was a lot of catharsis for me, as far as like, I felt like one of the worst things that happened to me as a Doctor Who fan was like Amy and Rory and River. Like, that was so traumatizing, because I was like, how could this happen? Like, how could the Doctor let this happen? Like, it's so dark. It's like such a dark fate. You know what I mean? Like, River's basically turned into a psychopath. Like, this baby is stolen and turned into a psychopath that's supposed to murder the Doctor, but is the daughter of the companions that the Doctor travels with, that they don't get to raise, and that they it's just so complicated. Anyways, it's brilliant, but it's also dark. So I thought there was a catharsis, when like the in a weird way, when the Toymaker kind of like shoves it in his face. Like, I was like, oh yeah, like, it's thought of, like, the Doctor's like, it's something that's on weighing on the Doctor still, like, so that's pretty cool.
yeah. Um, I did think
And
we
Clara and Bill. Sorry.
yes, yes. I
It
did
hasn't
think
been a
it.
good run of for companions since Rose. No, sorry, Martha. Martha survived unscathed, mostly.
Yeah, I guess is that why she didn't get her complimentary 10th Doctor?
I guess so.
Because I'm here for you, Martha. I can be Martha's 10th Doctor.
No,
So right there.
she got stuck with problematic Mickey Smith.
Yes. But yeah, because Rose got a 10th Doctor. Donna got a 10th Doctor.
Donna gets it.
Martha,
Whoa, could
Martha.
that be the new? Can I get a 10th Doctor? Actually, I would
Yeah.
love it. I'd love a 10th Doctor to help me as I age, as I grow old, like, to help me with the dishes, or like, oh my gosh, can I please have a 10th Doctor? That would be
Ruby
amazing.
Sunday needs to get a 10th Doctor. Like, anytime anybody who's a companion during the Russell T Davies era needs to end up with their own 10th Doctor.
That's what the 14th, that's what 10 Mark IV does. 10 Mark IV goes around and like just spends the rest of the time with all the companions. Like, the Doctor leaves the companion behind. The 14th shows up and is like, hey, it's me. It's the Doctor. I'm still with you. I'm gonna stay with you till you die. And I happen to look like the 10th Doctor. And then oh my gosh, that's a great, I love it. Sorry. I want a 10th Doctor.
You
May
get a
we all
10th
get it.
Doctor, and you get a 10th Doctor, and you get a 10th Doctor.
Please, Oprah, give me a 10th Doctor for Christmas. Thank you. I unironically love the idea of getting a 10th Doctor, by the way. I'm not even joking. Which makes Donna Noble one of
I
the
mean,
luckiest
I'm just
companions
gonna
ever.
come out and say it. You do realize that the eBay resale value on a 9th Doctor is a lot higher than a 10th Doctor. The market's a little flooded. So,
Truly, though, I would like an 11th Doctor. If I could get another 11th Doctor, that would be nice. He's still my favorite. I don't know though. I quickly jumped into the TARDIS with the 15th Doctor. I'm very excited about
Oh yes.
who that was.
Well, before we get to him, what did you think
Yes.
of Donna's last outing?
Well, I don't think it's again. I don't think it's going to be their last. But for now, their current crescendo, if you will, was superb. I thought Donna's family is really cool too. That last scene like really touched me and my family personally. We all watched it together and we're all a bunch of tears during the whole thing. Who doesn't love the idea? You know, aside from the Doctor finally getting that like kind of, you know, and he says it like, "What have I fought all this time for? Is this like I'm the happiest, you know, I've ever been." You know, so I kind of love that like the Doctor gets a little peace for a while, and it's with Donna's family, which is bonkers, but it
I
makes
wanted them
sense.
to put up a little bit of text at the end that said, 3 days later, the Doctor took off of the 10th Doctor Mark IV, took off in the TARDIS and went back to the 1920s and hooked up with, what's her name from Spaced, from Human Nature. What's the woman he was going to marry?
Oh my gosh. That would have been a great end, but he could do. That's the great thing about having a TARDIS is that like that's I guess that's what I
could
meant.
Literally go off there, marry that woman, have kids with her.
Like the Doctor doesn't sleep. Like the thing is, what's cool about this is like we saw a preview of this with the 11th Doctor. You know, that's one of the things that I love. I think that I love the most about the Rory Amy Doctor thing is that he spent a lot of time at home with them.
Yeah.
And there was that one episode where he had to go for some reason with the cubes. Remember
Oh yeah, Chris
he had to go the slow. He couldn't like just
Powers of 8 or something.
Powers of 8. He couldn't just hop or something. He had to stay for long periods of time, like to going the long way, as you will, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was brilliant because we got an example of like how the Doctor he did like the fence, he renovated the house, like he never stops, he doesn't sleep like we do, and like like there's not they don't even know where the bedroom is because he's never in it. Like the Doctor's just always awake doing something, you know, like like so I just imagine exactly that, and it's also in that one little. What's beautiful about that little scene, it establishes kind of all of that in the dialogue really kind of beautifully, like, you know, taking Mel to the Gilded Age in New York, like he did that as a side adventure, taking Rose to Mars, like he is actually hopping around.
No, Big Finish is like, okay,
this is
so
great.
if we can get David Tennant to come back in like he's done lots of times before, we can pair him up with any companion we want, and this is viable.
Well, what's brilliant about this is that like it creates like an instant spin-off where you have a Tennant played Doctor that has all the experiences of all the other Doctors. So David Tennant can like literally do like and we get resolutions to Jodie's stories. We get resolutions to like, you know, to Smith's stories. Like so David Tennant is eating his cake. This is Doctor Who, eat your cake, you know, have your cake and eat it too era for sure, because like David Tennant gets to do all the Doctors that came before the 14th, and then really Gatwa gets to go do a whole new like universe of episodes. It's wonderful. It's kind of a cool thing, you know. It's like Doctor Who's like very multi-dimensional at the moment.
It definitely felt like to me that Russell was like, it was such a pain in the neck to get Tennant and Tate to come back and to narratively structure that. I'm just going to leave the door open so that I can make more Donna Doctor episodes whenever the heck I want and not have to explain how or why. It's just, nope, we just open up. Their TARDISes look the same on the inside and everything.
I would watch like a once a quarter, like so 4 times a year, Doctor and Donna like comedy special that has no time traveling. It's just them having comedic moments with like a laugh track at the house, like all the trouble that everyone, like gets into, like kind of like a sitcom style thing. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
That's an
Well,
absurd idea. Don't do that, please.
well, I mean, I read something where Russell said that the reason they made 3 specials was purely down to that was all that David Tennant and Catherine
Catherine
Tate's
Tate could
schedules.
line up.
He said if they had more overlap, I would have made more specials. If they'd had less, I would have made less. That's why it's 3, is because there was only time for 3. But that sort of implies to me that if there's a constellation forming an alignment of schedules later, we might get more of them. And that this is very much leaving the door open to that possibility. So I assume the actors must be fine with, oh yeah, no, I'll do more of them as soon as the schedules line up.
It'd be cool if you could just do in between seasons, just like have little pop-ins. And I think again, like, not just David Tennant and Catherine Tate, like it'd be neat if we saw some new kind of information about like Amy, Rory, and the the 11th Doctor, and like, or I gravitate towards the 11th Doctor because he's one of my favorites, but why not give, Capaldi's a huge Doctor Who fan, and I hope, we don't know. He said he kind of was dubious about it, but saying that I don't think he intends to come back to it, but who knows? Or again, get Jodie Whittaker written by Stephen Moffat, maybe a little bit, like, and played by and directed by Russell T Davies or someone else. Like it'd be neat to see her Doctor come back a lot more. Actually, I wouldn't mind her. Like if we can have 14, we could certainly have 13 come around a little more often as well. So it'd be cool.
I mean, I get the idea. Russell and Catherine and David get on like a house on fire. They just love each other. So I don't know if that's really going to happen with the other combos out there, because I don't
never
know
say
if
never. You never
they're
know.
not. I don't think he's inviting the other people over to Thanksgiving or whatever it is they do in the UK. But
I think what Russell T Davies was brought on to do is to kind of like, I think Doctor Who, just as this episode kind of like says, has kind of gotten heavy with like the continuity of like everything that has happened like since the last time, since 2005, I guess, right? Is that what it is, right? So
yeah,
they're kind of just like, metaphorically saying like, guys, don't worry about that. Like, all that stuff, we're going to go in a whole new direction. The Doctor's going to go to new places, and, for all the fans, trust us, and let's see what we're going to do. And I think it's going to be just like before. Like he'll do the first like 4 or 5 seasons, whatever he wants. Like, let's see how long Russell T Davies wants to do it, and then another showrunner will take over and do more after that.
yeah.
And there is the curse now of the modern Doctor Who, where everyone in the role suddenly gets like lots and lots of offers to do other roles. So like the Doctors don't last long before they're like scooped up by the cinema. And it looks like Ncuti Gatwa is so talented. Like I can't imagine he won't, get scooped up.
The only way we can get them to show up for Big Finish recordings is if we infect the entire world with a pandemic. And then you have to stress out that they're going to figure out that you're responsible for that. So.
But I am excited about, I do feel like there was a nice aria de Capua, if you will, to use a term, to the what I think could be fairly called the Russell T Davies era, since he kicked it off and brought it back in such a big way and influenced it throughout its, Chris Chibnall was one of the writers he brought on since, in his run, to write episodes and stuff like that. And so was Stephen Moffat. So I think it was a nice cap to the first era of Russell T Davies. And now he's like, hey, I've learned a few tricks. I've gone around, I made a couple of other, hits, and, I want to tell different kinds of stories and see what Doctor Who can do in a different direction. And I feel like that's where it's going.
This is at the risk of getting even more off topic here. I was thinking the other day that Russell T Davies is now the father of Doctor Who. I mean, he's what Gene Roddenberry was to Star Trek, or George Lucas is to Star Wars. Russell T Davies will now always be that guy. even
I would say that
20
he's
years
definitely
after he stopped being showrunner, he will still be, the father of Doctor Who, the man, the single man who had more influence than any other single person on the planet on the show, even through history, because it was really very much a collaborative process back in the 60s or at any other point in the show. Even the John Nathan Turner era is really long, but you can tell that there's massive differences every time they change script editors. It's there's no one person you can point to who's father of Doctor Who more than Russell T Davies, and certainly no one else who's alive at this point. But even if you include the dead people, I don't think there's anyone who's had any single person who's going to have had quite the impact and name association with Doctor Who that Russell T Davies has, in the same way that Roddenberry is associated with Star Trek and Lucas is associated with Star Wars.
I don't know if I like the idea of a father. Maybe it creeps me out because of Darth Vader, but I think he's more of like the chief steward. I would call him personally. Same thing, same difference, but you know what I mean. Like, I think he's definitely the most, and he loves it so much. Like, I mean, you can tell he just like loves Doctor Who. He's definitely said the most about it officially. Like, he certainly has put in the most in the modern time. He's certainly put actually probably ever. He's probably put in the most information into Doctor Who since the classic era, I would say. And everything stems from that.
Yeah. I mean, Moffat will be remembered, I think, as a guy who did Doctor Who, but Russell T Davies, I think he's always going to be that Doctor Who guy from here on out. I don't know if I have trouble imagining he's ever going to eclipse this now that he's come back. It was one thing if he did it and then he went on and did other, but now that he's come back, he's kind of the Doctor Who guy.
I feel like
typecast. He's typecast.
The classic era doesn't really have a Gene Roddenberry per se. It has, like, as you said, it was a collaborative thing that came together, like, with a bunch of people. Which, what I would say about 2005 and onward, he's definitely like the Rick Berman of Doctor Who in terms of like his vision, kind of like,
but I'd much rather be stuck in an elevator with Russell T Davies.
He's 100% like, you know what I mean? But he's definitely like the executive producer of Doctor Who. He's definitely the person that has the most authority, I would say, currently as to what is a Doctor Who, like what makes Doctor Who kind of. He's got a good handle on it too. I feel like he has honored what the other showrunners have done. Like, I think he's done a good job of, like, again, just like, I wish there was a little bit more of the 13th Doctor sprinkled into these, but I kind of think it's just, I feel like it's fair to just move on as well, because that's what they've always done. There wasn't really a lot of 10th Doctor in the 11th Doctor, and that was one of the things that pissed my sister off. Is like, they just forgot about him. But that's something that Doctor Who does.
That's how it works.
And that's how it works.
The show is constantly self-regenerating.
I was late.
Within the course of every episode is a new world with a whole new set of rules that they have to step out of the TARDIS and
I
figure out.
love the 11th Doctor so much that it took me I didn't warm up to 12 for his whole first season, and I was a late warmer upper to 13 as well. So that's why I'm kind of holding on to her a little longer. I think it's because I was late to understand, to get her. Yes, it's like, oddly enough, David Tennant's references have made me kind of like be like, oh yeah, like that's right. Like, there's a lot of aha moments about the 13th Doctor that have come up. But yeah, Donna Noble was pretty rad altogether. I like balanced. I like seeing a companion that has we got to talk about Mel at some point, but I guess I like seeing a companion that's traveled with the Doctor who gets to have a happy ending. And I guess, it may as well be Donna. So, like, I think she played that really well. She still has, like, her own life that she's built, but she's kind of shown the Doctor that he could take a breather. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I was pleased with her her performance, and it's kind of cool. She's working for Unit now, so
I
until
think,
she
yeah.
pours coffee on that alien and it dies. So
And yeah. Donna Noble has finally been saved. She got a oh, that's right. She got a sweet job, 120K and 5 weeks vacation.
and
What?
those are pounds too, not dollars.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. 120K pounds. That's right. That's a lot of money, Donna.
Yeah.
That's good because her family's really they were struggling in the beginning of the special. So I'm glad she's able to
She
bring
will
in
be able
some
to
dough.
afford to get her house fixed after
Yeah,
our
exactly.
beast.
Which you see actually in the I guess it's not I don't know how much time passes after the after the bi-generation
Well,
and
apparently only a minute, because then they cut to the 15th Doctor and he still doesn't have his pants on.
I think he doesn't have his pants on probably for 20 years while he's
Oh,
like
okay.
traveling around. That seems all right. I mean, like, why wouldn't you, if you're traveling alone, why wouldn't you run around in your underwear in the TARDIS? Like, that's the thing that the Doctor
Because
didn't
your
feel
cats
comfortable
will
with.
scratch your legs up. At least that's how it works in this house. In fact, that's
That's
why
good. That's
I always
interesting.
get denim, because kids wear denim pants because it resists the cat claws a little better than a lot of other types of pants.
That was a nice pop culture reference to Risky Business, though. I thought that was cool.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right.
Right? Wasn't it
Yeah,
kind of that's
yeah.
100%
I
what it
know
was,
you're
right?
probably right. I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, Shooty Gatwa probably wasn't even alive when Risky Business came out, I think. But
Shurigawa was a fan of the 10th Doc was a kid watching the 10th Doctor.
yeah,
It's a weird that's the other thing I meant to say is that like what's cool about a bi-generation and the way that it worked out where the previous Doctor gets to like literally hand off the TARDIS and the journey, the whole thing to another
yeah,
Doctor is that this is the first time since I guess the seventh regenerating into the eight. Well, no, Paul McGann was still older, I guess. I don't know. This is the first time we see like a handoff to a younger because Shooty Gat was definitely from a generation that grew up watching the Russell T Davies, first round,
yeah,
ninth and 10th Doctor and 11th Doctor. Those were the big. Those kids
yeah,
are all adults now. They're like in their early 20s. They're like
yeah.
actors and whatever else. Like, some of them are probably working on Doctor Who doing visual effects and other things like that. It's kind of a neat thing to see that transference of the torch
Yeah.
in such a meta way. I thought that was pretty cool as well about the bi-generation.
Yeah.
That's why I thought it was, and I kind of like that also. Everything's so pitted and binary, like older generation boomers against the zoomers, like there's like this whole thing, but we could be bi-generational, like we could, like I feel like you can be both old and young at the same time and be older and look younger and like whatever, it's all good. Like let's stop all this fighting, as the Doctor points out. That's the other. We haven't even gotten. Wow, this is gonna be a long episode. I'm sorry. I have a lot of.
Uh, um,
What'd you
yeah.
think of Kate Stewart? Which Redgrave? What's her name?
Gemma Redgrave.
Gemma
Oh, she's
Redgrave.
always
Thank you.
fun to see.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like they could have written her a little smarter when like they're all firing their guns and their bullets are turning into flowers. And she doesn't just say, okay, stop. This is a waste of time. She's like, no, keep firing, and just lets them go at it with their machine guns. And I'm just like, really, Kate? The apple does not fall far from the tree, does it?
I agree that she could have been a little bit more dynamic. Yeah, there were a few scenes where she was, but she's such a like she's so Kate's gotten bitter over the years. She needs a chill pill too, actually. Like I feel like I miss like when Kate was a little less, like angry all the time. Poor Kate Stewart, she's always angry. I want her to chill out. But she's got a lot to be angry about. I mean, like the whole world rests on Unit's shoulder, like sometimes from these threats. And so
And
We'll
Briggs
see
at
what.
shutdown unit, but I guess it's back again. So, that's got to be stressful.
Did you like the new unit, like set and like the Avengers building and all that stuff?
I love the joke that, okay, we have a helicarrier. Avengers has a helicarrier. Okay, we have a Stark Tower. That's a Stark Tower. This kind of continual riffing on the Avengers is kind of fun.
I did like Shelly. We got to see Shelly again. She's a character that I really like, and I forget the name of the actor who plays Shelly, but she was saying that it was very touching that they put a ramp on the TARDIS. The TARDIS could always accommodate. In universe, the TARDIS can accommodate anyone. Like all it would do is like drop itself, or remove its lower
yeah.
visual area, or whatever
I mean,
interface,
it
so it was like.
has to have had that, because how the hell did K9 get in and out of that TARDIS?
I think he does little coordinated hops that we don't see on
We've
screen.
never
Like,
seen him hop ever.
I think he
In all the
hops.
footage of K9, he's never been able to hop. And when he gets to stairs, he's literally just I'm stuck.
I
So
think he's always meant to have been a hover dog, but we see the wheels because of the production. But I
and
think
we
he's a
hear them
hover.
too.
Yeah, I think he's always meant to have been a hover dog. So I think he just can change his elevation and hover a little higher just for that. But
Should I make everything sad for a moment?
yes.
I'm pretty sure that wheelchair ramp was supposed to happen at the beginning of the episode so they could roll Wilf into the TARDIS.
That is what was going to happen.
I'm pretty sure that, I mean, just guessing, but I bet you they built that for that scene, and then they didn't get to film it, and so they used it here.
I think the behind the scenes thing that I saw made it seem like Russell T Davies put that in because of a letter that he got from a fan. And in the letter, the fan said, "I love the TARDIS so much, even though I would never be able to go aboard her because she's not wheelchair accessible." And that's what the behind the scenes said. I don't know, but
yeah, I mean, it could be. I could be wrong.
but that could be a spin. Who knows?
It's a fair amount of money to spend to build a prop like that, unless you have a plan to actually use that ramp.
Right.
And so is what I would say. They just, it's not that they wouldn't build it if they needed to have a wheelchair scene. It's just that
I think they built it to make a statement. It's probably, with the Disney money, it's not as expensive anymore.
Yeah,
all that Disney.
And maybe they're bringing K9 back, though. Chibnall could get him back.
K9. I would like to see K9. Actually, I would like to see a cat robot. That would be amazing if we get a cat robot, because I'm a cat fan now. I was a dog fan when I was a kid. Now I'm a cat fan as an adult. What about Melanie Bush coming back? That hit me by surprise. They kept that under wraps really well. I didn't know about it. Did you know?
They had people have caught photos of her riding a motorcycle with Ncuti Gatwa. So,
really?
So we know there's more Mel in the future.
Wow.
But I did not know Mel was going to be in this. There were several people who were pointing at a fuzzy blob in the back of one of the promotional photos, or one of the shots in the trailer, saying that fuzzy blob is going to turn out to be Mel. Just you watch. And they were right. So, whereas I said that could be anybody back there. How can you look at that blob and say that's Mel?
I think that's Mel. So cool that Mel's gonna. They now that kind of makes sense, because I feel like she was especially keen on the new Doctor. In those scenes, she was kind of like really taken by his new appearance. And it sounds like Mel would want to go on some adventures with him as well. Ooh, I like this new Mel, because I don't remember the old one being very remarkable. But I was like, whatever.
I mean, she was memorable. The debate is whether she was memorable in a good way or a bad way. But she certainly was memorable.
I like that. I like the idea of. I like the idea that the 15th Doctor will revisit older companions, as is tradition. I like that now that they do that now, kind of, which is pretty cool.
I kind of was like, went to all the trouble of bringing Mel back, and you didn't really do much with her. That I mean, there's nothing Mel does that you couldn't have just had Kate Stewart do or Donna do. And I was like, why did they do that? And one answer is to set up the next Mel episode with Ncuti Gatwa. And that's quite possible. There clearly Russell has the whole season, had the whole next season figured out, at least on some level before, and he's already dropping hints and stuff about what's happening next. Another answer I came up with that will make us sad is that Wilf Bernard Cribbins died, and he wanted somebody else to fill that role in the story of those scenes. And so he said, well, it's Unit. We'll get Ace or Tegan to come back. And then both of those actors were busy because it was a very last minute. Cribbins wasn't supposed to die. It was, we need somebody to fill this slot. And oh, okay. Which Doctor Who companion is available? Oh, Mel's available. Okay, stick Mel in there. I'm like, is that what happened? Because like literally Mel's sitting at the dinner table with everyone at the end saying that she's part of the noble family. And I'm like, what? It just felt so weird to me, and they didn't really do anything that seemed to require Mel, like not like when they brought Sarah Jane Smith.
It's back. Called making lemonade, Brian. It's called making lemonade.
Yeah.
And also,
I'm not complaining. I'm just making an observation that I wonder if this happened.
It's a good switcheroo, because Ncuti Gatwa was the sixth actor to play Doctor Who in the modern era, in the New Who era. So right, sixth actor, not doctor, but the sixth since Eccleston, right?
Eccleston, Tennant, Smith, Capaldi, Whitaker, John Hurt, I guess.
John Hurt doesn't count.
I don't know if
he counts in the Eighth Doctor era. He's in that time frame.
Okay, I mean, his existence of his character was entirely born out of the New Who era.
That's true. He is, but did he also play? No, that was the first time he played the Doctor.
Yeah.
It was the first time he played the Doctor. Fine, he's the seventh incarnation, but I was just gonna say it matches up nicely because the sixth actor and the sixth Doctor. There you go, and Mel.
Well, Mel was with the seventh Doctor too. But
that's true. So yeah, that's true. But anyways, she was great. I thought she was an awesome comeback, and I think she's going to be fun if they bring her back some more. It'll be cool to have her.
Yeah, no, I have no problem. She did a great job playing the part, and it was fun to see her again. And I don't know, maybe Unit will just be every time we do a Unit story, we drop another companion in, but which I'm fine.
It's kind of a safe place for companions to work because you can still do big stuff, but you're not like, you're protected in a way, like you're not.
And if you want to have a nervous breakdown in the coffee room about Daleks, you don't get wrapped. They don't haul you off to a funny farm.
Exactly. You can actually have that nervous breakdown. If
you can have that conversation.
And people will comfort you. So yeah, it does kind of make sense that, but it would just feed more into the Doctor's kind of like, the weight of him. And that's another thing, this Doctor that David Tennant, gets to play, could go around and like help dismantle these kind of, like help heal the world a little. And like, it could be a cool new era for Doctor Who, and a good message that needs to be sent out in these times. That was the most poignant thing, is that I thought, wow, like they really didn't pull punches here with the message, like, in terms of like humanity and like, what we've kind of gotten ourselves into, and like what kind of what the Toymaker feeds on, and what we're providing so much for him to eat and feast on, so, or those kinds of elements or entities, if you will.
Yes. No, it's almost like Russell is just, they don't want me to be political. Well, I'm going to be twice as political. It's just amazing.
But it was done in a way that I think like the best thing about Doctor Who is that, like, yes, it's a very specific and poignant message now, but I think that's a timeless message also.
Yeah.
Timeless child, a
Yes.
timeless message. It's a timeless message. It's like, and sadly, it's a timeless message because unfortunately, humans haven't stopped warring for a long time, and it seems like it's just getting worse and worse. So,
yeah. Well, shall we talk about Shooty Gatwa?
yes.
All right. I think we have a picture.
We do. Here he is. Hold on. There we go. The new Doctor, the next Doctor.
Yes.
The 15th Doctor, very exciting. Big milestone. The first actor who is non-white to play the Doctor on
Fugitive
screen.
Doctor.
Oh, the fugitive Doctor. That's true. But the male non-white Doctor. There you go. Okay. You're right. Why do we always forget the fugitive? I'm so sorry.
I'm not forgetting
Doctor.
the Fugitive Doctor.
I
I'm
forgot
kind of obsessed with her.
Okay. Sorry. Well, he's the first bi-generational Doctor. There you go.
Yes. And I mean, if I want to be pedantic, some of those timeless children that can't quick shotted their way through, and the timeless children were of color too. So
that's true.
But though you could argue they're not quite the Doctor yet, not fully baked.
The first non-cameo Doctor.
Yes.
There you go. Are you happy?
Yes.
That's the word I was looking for. The first non-cameo Doctor.
I want to say, as a huge fan of Sex Education, I've said it before. I'm just overjoyed that they've got Shooty Gatwa as the Doctor. I'm so pumped. I've been irritated these last 3 specials because I had to sit around watching David Tennant do what I've already seen him do, when I could be watching Shooty do something I've never seen Shooty do, or at least never seen the Doctor do. And I am so glad we finally reached this moment. I'm so glad we got a bunch. I thought it was I figured we'd just get him saying what the hell is going on, and then they'd roll credits. But no, we get all this good details about him. He gets to do stuff. He gets to David Tennant is still wearing the pants in the family, but he got the shirt and the tie and his underpants, whereas David Tennant's still running around going commando. He also got the shoes and socks. So I guess David Tennant knew what was going, or the 10th Doctor knew what was going to happen, because he was wearing 2 shirts.
I guess he was wearing an undershirt. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it was a button up the front shirt, but it was collarless. So I wasn't quite sure. And I was like, if they just don't want his nipples hanging out, then they could have just put he has that vest that would have covered him. But maybe they thought having his bare arms next to hunky Shooty Gatwa would not have looked nice. Or maybe David Tennant has all sorts of tattoos on his arms that we don't know about. But though I've not seen anything that made me think that. But anyway, yes, I was so glad to see him. I will say he actually was a little lower key than I thought, because Eric in Sex Education is very bouncy. So I'd kind of assumed that he was going to bring some of that energy, but he's definitely a bit lower key than that, which is fine. He shouldn't have to play the same role for everything.
Yeah, he's like, I like this Doctor. He's like confident and smooth, and like knows, like he just knows what he wants. He's like a really cool. They are really cool. We don't know how they identify yet, so
yeah.
I'm gonna guess that they're gonna be the first non-binary identifying Doctor as well. We'll see.
Are we to assume that the emotional trauma of the flux, and I guess the timeless children reveal, such as it is, was all left behind with the David Tennant Mark IV, and is not rattling around in Shooty's head? Or is Shooty also struggling with trauma?
I think the line in the episode actually explains it really perfectly. It's that by taking a break, retroactively, the 14th David Tennant's Doctor is helping the 15th just kind of deal with it. Like by the time, in a weird way, they're like kind of, I think that the Doctor in this state, in this bi-generational state, is like a quantumly entangled, if you will. So the serenity of like, what the David Tennant's Doctor is doing is simultaneously being transferred into Shooty, and maybe that's what we were seeing was we might have even been seeing the Doctor remembering his first adventure on the TARDIS. Like when you were saying, oh, it was just seconds later, it might actually have just been him remembering, because they're connected. Like they know what, in a weird way, they're like a dyad, like to quote that other franchise. But you know what I mean? Like they're like completely entangled, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it.
There's a Time Lord telepathic word called entrelacement.
There you go. They're interlaced.
That is okay. That cat was not even alive when we recorded last at the beginning of the year.
But yeah, I think they're definitely like entrelaced, or entrelacement is what's would be the explainer for that. That's how I take it.
Yeah. we first see entrelacement in the Three Doctors when they say contact, and they all telepathically talk to each other.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And they play that beep 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 beep. And Big Finish can never figure out whether it should put that sound effect in when doctors do telepathic contact in their audios, because on one hand, it's like this grounded, very memorable sound that everyone knows and knows exactly what that sound means. Well, not everyone, but everyone who saw the Three Doctors knows what that sound means. On the other hand, it's incredibly cheesy and jarring to have that suddenly. And you're like, is that actually a sound, or is that just music, or what? But yes, it's been named in the novels as telepathic entrelacement. So.
Right on.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm charged up. I'm very annoyed that we're not going to get the next Shooty Gatwa episode next week, but
we're gonna get it at Christmas. What a nice Christmas!
Christmas is not far away. Can wait for my presents. I want to open them now. I want to open Shooty Gatwa.
I want to open Shooty Gatwa. Wow.
Like, I keep wearing David Tennant's clothes. So.
That's funny.
Anyway, so yeah, I was pleased. Shall we talk about what the good is in this episode?
Yeah. I just, gosh, like where to begin? For me, it was like a home run all the way around. And actually, I had the opportunity to watch the last two specials back to back, and I think they run really beautiful. They're gonna all run really nicely together. I was complaining that they need to be longer. Well, actually, now that they've run, it's like a nice 3-hour movie if you want, with like an intermission, because they all do they literally take place like one after the other. So it kind of works out that you could watch it that way, and it's a lot bigger and more exciting that way. Watching the previous one and this one together was especially good because they both have that kind of creepy, like doom vibe to them, so for a big chunk of the episode, they blend beautifully into one another, I think. So yeah, it worked out really good.
Yeah, nice little tight trilogy.
But yeah, I like the I liked so many things about it. One thing I do want to comment on is that like I did like the inclusion of the Master, or at least the understanding that the Master is still going to come back somehow at some point. And in fact, I'm willing to bet that the Master influenced the Toymaker to do the Spice World dance somehow. Also, the other thing that was neat about the Toymaker is, did you notice that he had like an insane amount of teeth? And I wondered, since the Master was turned into a tooth, I wonder if all his Vanquished games got turned into a tooth. It made me wonder about that, because did you notice at one point he had like so many more teeth than like you should normally have? Like he had like It was like a crazy grill of teeth.
Oh,
So I was like,
okay.
oh,
I have
that's
to confess, I wasn't counting the teeth, and I don't know enough about
but
orthodontics
that's the
or
kind of
whatever
subtle,
to
creepy thing.
yeah.
That's why I think this episode was so delicious. Those are the kinds of subtle little creepy things. And Russell T Davies does that other thing where he like, we were talking about it earlier, but it's like throwing in these like prophetic sounding things or like
Yeah.
just references to things that haven't happened yet. Like those are
The
like the
one
kind
who
of
waits.
well,
That's
I think the one who waits was this doctor. I think that's what he was referring to, but maybe it's another
I
doctor.
think
I don't know.
we're the one who waits, or he who waits, or whatever is going to be the big bad for next season.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Because he said my no, but okay, well, okay. I have to go back and watch the scene, but I got the impression that they were talking about that he had foreseen possibly the 15th Doctor
Well, he said he
as a
wasn't.
possibility,
Uh,
like because he even brought him into existence. Like that was the one
yeah, but
who
he
waits.
seemed a bit surprised by the whole thing. I mean, he was
Well, he was
definitely like,
surprised that no, what he was surprised by is not he was surprised by the bi generation, not he wanted the next doctor. He said, I started the game with a previous doctor. Now the second one I played with you, the third one I'll play with the next doctor.
yeah,
So that was his plan all along. So I always assumed the one who waits was always the doctor that he really wanted to
yeah,
fight against or face off against, but it backfired on him when they bi generated.
yeah. Um, could
But
be.
it could also just be the big bad of the next season.
Yeah, I don't know. And he also mentioned my legions are coming, and I wonder if that's going to be the bad guys for the Christmas special. Just
Oh, the goblins, that might be
yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, no, I liked a lot of stuff about this episode. I like that the Toymaker doesn't cheat.
Yeah.
For the simple reason, I mean, I'm sure a lot of fans are complaining because in the original TV episode, he cheats a lot. He absolutely rigs the game. He brags to the doctor and companions about rigging the game. But I think if you're going to have a character who's all this powerful, giving him one thing that he doesn't do makes him more interesting.
Yeah,
So like
100%.
and I thought there was an interesting one of my first encounter with the Celestial Toymaker was actually one of those republished Marvel color comics, where they did the backup strips, which don't have the Doctor in them. Generally, they just were stories about the Autons or the Quarks or stories about Autons or Quarks or whatever, and they did one about the Toymaker where this riverboat gambler in Mississippi gets pulled into the Toymaker's realm and they gamble, and eventually the gambler starts losing and he gets worried, and so he starts cheating to win. And then later on he takes his cards and picks them up and they've all turned into jokers, and he's like, what the hell? And the Toymaker's like, it says, well, you started cheating, so I figured that was a new rule you invented, that cheating was okay, so I started cheating too. And I like that version. He doesn't cheat unless you cheat. That's I thought that was and this version is easily compatible with that version.
Right, right.
Even though the Doctor says he never cheats, but I think he absolutely would if you started cheating. But but either way, it's more interesting than the original Toymaker, who just was rigging the game shamelessly and repeatedly. It wasn't like, okay, I've done a big cheat and now you have to dig yourself out of it. He's like, oh no, you're starting to win, I cheat again. Okay, now you're starting to win again, I cheat again. It was just kind of dumb.
Maybe he only had that ability in that one world and the Doctor destroyed it, so that's why he's like even more pissed, is because like now he has to play by some rules where he didn't have to in that other place.
Yeah, there could be, and something like that happened. I loved all the twists. I managed to go in without knowing anything. I didn't know we were going to get anywhere near that much shooty. I didn't know David Tennant was going to still be up and about by the end. I didn't know Mel was going to be in it, despite the rumors. I was pretty confident that those rumors were wrong. I was wrong, but I was still surprised to be wrong on that point. So yeah, there was all sorts of stuff that I did not see coming in this story, and that was delightful and fun.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I thought the same thing. It was like just such a fun story.
I think my favorite David Tennant moment was the "Why are you so small" sequence. I just thought that like, what do? You can't. No amount of technical trickery is going to stop the Toymaker, and he's kind of got this incredibly low moral threshold. So appealing to his morality is basically useless. So how do you take control of this situation? And David Tennant, the 10th Doctor, Mark 3 finds a way to do that, or at least try. And the Toymaker is tempted. You can actually see he's thinking about it. It's this Time Lord and Toymaker adventuring across the cosmos thing actually appeals to him on some level. And I thought that was really interesting. And I like it when Doctor Who does that. Like, it isn't just, oh, well, we blow the bad guy up or we take the bad guy's gun away. But when we try to do something more of a cultural paradigm shift. And so I really like that speech. I love the way it played out. I love the way the actors handled it. I love the idea of, did anyone ever try that with Q? I mean, there's times when, they're just like, okay, Q,
I
I
feel
don't
like
care.
some version of that happened with Q, where when he became I guess they did it in a different way, where when they made him mortal and that's when he started kind of like that was it was like an extended version of that, like into an, like
well, yeah, but was there ever a time where Picard or any of the Starfleeters said, okay, what if instead of pushing Q away and finding different ways to tell him to fuck off, or just bending over and kissing his ass because it's the only way I can save our lives, is there a way I can embrace Q and turn him into an ally? Because there's definitely times like where he apologizes to Q and says, no, we're not ready to face the Borg, now take us home. There's definitely this sense that, he's not happy about that. He's not trying to make friends with Q when he says that. It's not any, there's no common ground being forged with that scene, right? Whereas David Tennant, or the 10th Doctor or 14th Doctor, or whatever you want to call him, was absolutely reaching out to the Toymaker and trying to offer him a different path. And I'm like, did we ever see that in Star Trek with Q? Because I maybe we did. There's a lot of Q out there, and I'm not.
Again, I feel like, yeah, in a way, it's not quite the same, but Q kind of comes to the same comes to a positive conclusion. I think that's when Q changes. Kind of is after that episode, he becomes less of a threat and more of like a mischief maker.
Yeah.
Whereas,
I think, yeah, Q changes. Certainly by the end of season 2 of Picard, we have a very different Q. But he changes in spite of everyone telling him to fuck off, it feels like, as opposed to because right. of something somebody offered or said to him directly.
But what I like about the Toymaker is that, in a weird way, it's like there's not really a comparison, because Doctor Who, the Doctor, a Time Lord is basically a Q as long as they can get to their time machine. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So it's like kind of different. It's not quite the same as. This is more like, I don't know. I think he's definitely trying to buy a humanity time here. Like, so he's hoping that he could take the Toymaker off for like maybe 1,000-year journey, before he gets, and like in that time, maybe he could figure out how to defeat him. So I think there's always that. To me, I like the idea that the Doctor knows that there are just some, like in the I would take the Toymaker on his word that he will always be, no matter what the outer face is, he will always be this like element that can't be changed. It's like an elemental. He's always going to be the game. It's always going to be win or lose, no
Yeah.
matter what. And maybe there are ways to turn that singularity to a positive
Mhm.
like place. But what I also like, what I do like is that kind of, in a weird way, it's not quite as explicit, but in a weird way, the Doctor kind of beat the game by not playing the game in a like in a way, it was
No, he wins
like
by playing a ball game.
no, but like he wins the game by like, like he gets killed and then he turns into two. It's like a different game. Like he changes
Yeah.
the game, I guess. It's a Kobayashi Maru. I didn't even think about it that way, but he changes the game. He changes the parameters, but it all, I guess, is still, it is like the Kobayashi. He turned a no-win scenario into, because what the Toymaker would have done is just kept regenerating the Doctor over and over and over again.
See, and I
Like
was
in some
like,
kind of like.
it occurred to me, I was like, "That's a terrible idea, Mr. Toymaker." I just as your little puppet here, I would like to say that's a terrible idea. Making infinite number, spending 100 years exponentially growing the number of doctors facing you is not a viable solution to any problem. If you're trying to oppose
But
the Doctor,
didn't
like, oh look, I'm going to make 1,000 doctors, 1,000,000 doctors, and then I'm going to kill them all. Yeah, at some point, the number of doctors that you are facing is going to be able to mess you up. Just, it's inevitable. The Doctor is way too clever and way too dangerous, and in his own way, way too powerful. It's like, that's a
but
terrible idea, Mr. Toymaker.
the Doctor did say, in the episode where he beats him the first time around, that he's like he can't be destroyed. So
Yeah.
there's no way to, you can't really destroy the Toymaker. So it's the only way to do it is to lock him. Basically, what he did is he banished him from this realm. So he's back to he's back to out somehow. The gates have been closed to our universe, in other words.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that he fell into this box, but he made the box, so that's important. So there's like,
well, the box might be the doorway to his. The box is in some level a doorway to his toy room. So,
or it could be the toy room, bigger on the inside as well.
Well,
It could
yeah,
be the new toy room.
It starts becoming a semantics thing at that
Right.
point. Is the TARDIS a doorway to a?
I like that Kate Stewart says put it in a thing of salt. Like, didn't she say like surround it with salt? Like I thought that was kind of funny.
I mean, I'm not sure. That almost arguably might be the worst thing you could do, is to evoke some superstition. That seems to make it more powerful. The Doctor didn't interfere. So.
He didn't say anything. Maybe he didn't hear her. It's true. Yeah. But yeah, the Toymaker is an interesting twist. I mean, it did feel that speech as as good as, I love a good Doctor Who speech, but it did feel like similar to like the same kind of plea he made with the Master, where he always makes with the Master, I guess, is kind of like, where the Doctor always says some variation of, but like,
eventually
you could be better than this.
In the Moffat era, we pay that speech off. So, which I loved. I loved the fact that we actually went back and picked up this idea from the Russell T Davies era and explored it fully in the Moffat era. Just a little side note. I'm assuming the galvanic beam cannon is the same thing they used to blow up, the Torchwood used to blow up the Sigarax spaceship in Christmas Invasion. I mean, is that a safe bet? This is their,
well, it's a 15-year later version of it, so it's got to be like a more advanced version of it.
It was multiple beams when they blew up the Sigarax thing, but they only had to blow up a satellite, so they only needed to bring out one of these turrets, not like all of them. And they said it was going to take time to set up, and it took time to set up this turret, and it said it'd take time for Torchwood to get ready to blow up the Sigarax ship. So, and Torchwood's not around anymore. I as a formal organization, I don't believe. I'm way behind on my Torchwood audio dramas from Big Finish, but somebody must have inherited those laser cannons. So, and Unit would be the most obvious choice.
That makes sense. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. The other thing I paradoxically love is that this story, the Giggle. Yes, there's going to be people out there saying, "Hey, look, the Doctor doesn't mention any of these other encounters with the Toymaker that he's had in all these novels and comics and audio dramas and stuff. So they're not canon. And my response, of course, is he doesn't necessarily really mention the one with the heart, the one on TV either. It sounds like he's talking about the one he had back when he was a Time Lord or a Gallifreyan at the Academy.
Also, I think it's well known that Doctor Who canon is a lot more inclusive than other, like everything.
Yeah,
like,
everything's
there's a lot of
or
canon
nothing's canon, depending on how you want to draw the line.
Yeah, exactly.
But the point, I enjoyed the fact that not only did it contradict the expanded universe, it contradicted the original story, which had the Doctor saying, "This is our second meeting," and yet when he meets him with the Toymaker, it meets in the Giggle, they once again say, "This is our second meeting," emphatically. So yes, you could use this to try to argue that all those expanded universe stories didn't happen, but if you do that, you're also throwing out the original William Hartnell TV episode, because by that same logic, so you're stuck either accepting everything or nothing again. And I quite enjoyed the wonderful twist that Russell T Davies was sitting there saying, "Well, what about all these other stories? Should I mention those or imply they're there?" Nah, I'm going to just say none of them happened, not even the ones that were talked about on screen. So yes, lots of good things. Did you have anything else you really liked about this one?
No, I think, I just keep thinking about the 15th Doctor. I just really love Shooty Gatwa's performance. Yes. I'm like so excited. So
pumped.
Well, and again, a nice little bow on top of a whole time, like this whole era, this whole thing. It's kind of, it just felt satisfying and delightful and honoring and all those good things.
Yeah, getting to see the Doctor's hug.
Yeah,
and much /fic was written. So probably all hurt comfort /fic. So let's talk about the bad. I actually had a surprising number of these by the time I got done. Well, the Giggle. That's a dumb title.
I didn't think so, but yeah, I mean, it's not the best title.
It doesn't really tie in with the rest of the narrative. Like the Giggle is important for about like 3 minutes on screen. They go from why has everyone become raving libertarians to, oh look, it's something to do with this Giggle for like 5 minutes, and then it's the Toymaker. And so like, why not have it named after something that occupies more screen time than that Giggle, which was only important to the narrative for like just a few minutes?
Because it got you thinking about the Giggle the whole week instead of looking up spoilers or trying to figure out what was really going on. It was a good.
Everybody knew it was the Toymaker. Just say
no, but just like in general, like it was fun to watch it with my sister and my mom because they had no idea he was going to regenerate. It was just great. It was delightful to watch it with folks that had no idea what was going on, and so I think it was like,
and I suppose retroactively, we still don't know what that wild blue yonder stuff was about.
Oh yeah, that too. That
was not explained.
That's true.
So, and that was apparently very important because it's the title. So it's not just, it wasn't just the TARDIS being a little weird and malfunctioning. It's the title. So, I started to get a little tired of that German accent toward the end. It's kind of like, okay, he's still doing it.
Just because, like I don't know, it didn't really sound like I know a lot of German people, and it's just a different way of. It was too caricature-y.
Well, okay, that fake German accent. I was getting a little tired of the fake German accent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't usually find that problem with something closer to a real German accent.
Real German accent, yeah, that's true.
Like, I can watch stuff with a bunch of people talking with Russians accents, and it doesn't bother me. But yeah, this was just so overcamped. I was like, and I don't know. It was just kind of like having a Dalek shout at you for a long time. This is why I've never done the Dalek universe audios or the Dalek the Dalek dedicated Dalek series of audios from Big Finish, because I just can't put myself into listening to that many Dalek stories in a row because their voice gets on your nerves.
Read entirely in a Dalek voice. 200 pages, Doctor Who Dalek history.
Yes. I think we kind of already this really wasn't even a bad, but we both agree that the fourth Tenant Doctor is not retiring. I guess we think he's just going to keep adventuring, or do we think he's taking a break? You said.
I think he's definitely going to enjoy life and travel and kind of do side adventures that, like, what was, again, everything that was just suggested in that. I can't say it more beautifully than the scene presented. He's just taking it chill pill. He's hanging out with Donna and he's uncle. Like, so he pops in. He's not there every day, but he pops in. He's there for all the important events. Like, maybe he's the photographer at the parties, like that kind of thing. Like, that's what his life is. And I don't know how long he's gonna. He even says, Donna's like, you can leave whenever you want. And he's like, we'll see. I think he knows that he can do this because as Shooty's doctor said, I got you. Like, don't worry. And you know what? Who better to not worry about being the doctor than from the doctor telling you not to worry? Like, the next freaking doctor himself just said, chill out. Like, this has never happened before. Like, usually you just turn into the next one and you're gone. Like, this is the first. You get to actually have your cake and eat it too. I know I keep saying that, but it's like,
so your interpretation of that scene or that sequence is that when the next alien invasion comes,
it's not gonna.
I mean, it's Doctor Who. There's always going to be another
there
alien
will
invasion.
Be
there will always be another alien invasion.
There will be at some point a multi-doctor story, and he'll show up, and so will the 10th, and that's going to be wild, because the 10th Doctor will be like, what? Like, who are you? And the 14th will be like, long story, and then it's like, it's going to be great. So yeah, there will come a point, but right now he's just hanging out with Donna. But I also think he's gonna go hang out with Amy and Rory. I think he's gonna go hang out with Martha. He's gonna go hang out with, like, he could just be the doctor that hangs out. Like, he's the best doctor ever. Like, he's
especially
the doctor that could go
late 20th and early 21st century Earth. They can't stop getting aliens causing problems. They had Torchwood and Sarah Jane and Doctor Who all doing these plot lines simultaneously.
I have it.
At one point.
The fact that he's in Donna's orbit means he's going to miss all of those things just by proxy, just by virtue of being with Donna.
Okay, so you're saying he's just not going to notice them, as opposed to, I thought what you were saying was that he would look at the alien invasion and say, nah, Shooty's got this. Shooty's got it. I'm just going to go.
That's how much confidence I have in the 15th Doctor. If I were the 14th Doctor, I'd be like, I've got this. Let's go to Tesco's. Come on.
Okay.
Like, that's it.
All right.
And it's like, I'd feel that confident that the 15th Doctor is going to take care of it. Or
as long as both TARDISes are on the same page with this, it's actually pretty easy to engineer. But the TARDIS just keeps taking the Doctor where he needs to be, and therefore the other Doctor won't have to solve these problems. But the problems tend to be big enough on Earth that the 14th Doctor, or whatever Doctor he is, 10th Doctor Mark IV, is going to notice them. He's going to notice them, just like Rose notices them. So is he not getting involved in those situations, or is he getting involved on a minimal level and trusting that another incarnation is going to pick up the slack? He's the doctor that
can do whatever he wants. He's the first Doctor that can just do whatever he wants to. Like, he could choose not to give a shit because the Doctor's got it handled. The next Doctor, it's already handled. Or he could just go and help out every now, or he could, like, shadow the Doctor and, like, check up on him.
Well, they've got to do an episode now where both of them are solving the problem and they don't realize that they're both working on the same problem, and then they crash into each other, and they're like, no, this is the plan. No, this is the plan. No, I've been working on this plan. Well, I've been working on this. They've got to do something like that.
It'd be cool if every now and then, like, the 15th Doctor has to be like, get out. You're not supposed to be working on this. No, I don't think we'll see, honestly, I don't think we'll see the 10th Doctor for like probably another, like, until another big special. So I guess the 65th or whatever, that, like,
Next
minimum
Christmas.
5 years. Yeah, like, who knows?
They can
But
bring him back for next Christmas. I can see that.
I really hope we, I think let's let this Doctor have his own.
No, I mean, not
yeah,
like in a few
yeah,
weeks. I meant a year
right.
and a few weeks.
Yeah,
Is,
yeah.
bring him back for
Yeah,
that
it'd be cool.
Christmas special. It might be
But
nice.
that being said, you can have spin-offs again, like you could have little in between season, what's catching up with this Doctor, and if that's the case, we could catch up with any Doctor. Like, again, we could go back to 13, we could go back to 12. It could, there's a wealth of things we could do.
No. Let's see.
They've really opened Doctor Who up in kind of an interesting way, in terms of what you could do. There's not really, I think this is like the last limit. We already got rid of the regeneration limit. Now it's like there's like really literally like no limit to, like, the Doctor can literally be in more than one place and look different at the same time. Like it's
I mean, I
no
guess I
longer
feel like Big Finish had pretty much blown everything wide open
right.
already. But
Yeah.
as far as doing these sorts of stories with other Doctors and mixing and matching and stuff, but yeah, in fact, I almost wonder if this is, now that it's being happening in TV, Big Finish won't be allowed to do it in the audios. But I don't know. We'll have to see how that
They'll
plays
just take
out.
a break like the 14th Doctor, and they'll do it again later
Yeah.
when Doctor Who TV's moved on to its next thing.
Yeah, they're gonna Big Finish is getting ready for its gigantic Jodie Whittaker run right now.
Yes, please, let's do it. I'd love it.
Are we fine with the villain being the god, the evil god villain being taken out because he can't catch a ball? Is that like satisfying to us?
I think it was satisfying because I do think they did a good job of like showing it as like the stakes felt real regardless of how silly the game was.
Well,
I
the
thought
stakes were very high. I'm just like,
yeah.
this is a guy who can step through 98 years of time like walking
But
through
he
a
doesn't
doorway.
Yeah, but he doesn't cheat, remember? So he has to play on the same footing as the
Well, I guess
like,
is he automatically stuck in the body that he replicated?
He could have just duplicated himself, and then it would have been even more. That wouldn't have been a cheat, but I guess that would have been really weird.
Yeah. So I don't
no,
know.
I actually, like, to me that wasn't as important as like whatever game they played. I like never doubted that the Doctor wouldn't win. So that was kind of never but I liked the way it was done though. I liked the campiness of the whole thing and the whole like silliness that it's a ball with the balls and the earlier dialogue, the earlier thing about like, oh, now I see who has the balls, or like Donna Noble and all that stuff like that to do it or whatever. And
I mean,
I
they
thought
could have
that
just done rock, paper, scissors.
they could have, but it wouldn't have been as athletic. And I think you really needed to. I kind of dove into the behind the scenes thing, and Shooty Gatwa was saying like it's kind of cool, and it did kind of do this because he says it's kind of a way to warm up to your new Doctor, like him figuring out his body, and he kind of like cracks his joints at one point, and he's like doing like moves and like kind of some of them are a little awkward, and at one point he like
I loved when
overshoots
he threw the hard ball to his
at
other self.
yeah.
You're not supposed to make me lose or whatever.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, sorry, he just got too excited by the game.
And like you said, it was also a new Tenant Doctor. So there's two Doctor there. It's a bi-generation. It is awesome. It's like it's like having, what it's like giving birth to twins, like the like the regeneration created twins.
Yeah. I have no problem. I want to state absolutely no problem with the introduction to the lore of these bi-generations. That's fine.
Right.
In fact, now that we know that the Doctor is not actually a Gallifreyan, and that Gallifreyans are just cheap knockoffs of the Doctor that can only regenerate 12 times. Right. The idea that there's a lot more going on that Gallifreyans and Time Lords never knew about actually is perfectly plausible, that there can be other unforeseen biological traits that we have yet to see that are unique to the Doctor. And I'd like to explore that. It did occur to me, is this how that species reproduces? After a certain number of regenerations, they grow up and then they start dividing. Is that a thing they do?
Interesting.
Is this why the Doctor has been almost every incarnation of the Doctor has shown almost no interest in sex? Is because sex just is not how his species reproduces.
Right.
And that all kind of popped into my head. I'm like, hey.
That's a really cool idea to explore. I like that. That's very cool.
Is that how they reproduce? They just split after a while.
Are there others? Interesting.
Yeah, well, whether there's any other in this universe is another question. But now there are two of them. And whenever the Doctor needs to, and the laws of time are not keeping them apart because of the nature of their existence. So anytime the Doctor needs to just sit down and have a long drink and a talk about, I've seen some shit, man. There's a Doctor he can go do that with.
Right, it's true.
I kind of want, it would almost be fun to have a running gag where we open up episodes or have little cutaways or end shots where the 15th Doctor and the 14th Doctor are sitting in a bar or drinking tea in a garden, whatever, it doesn't matter. And they're like, yeah. And then the monster fell off the cliff and I couldn't save him. And it's like, dude, that sucks. Yeah, I know. Just kind of, that could be fun if this is idea that he's going off and having little talks with himself to blow off steam, and that's
pretty funny.
Yeah. So I don't know. It'd be fun to something to do.
It definitely, it's like one of those things that changes everything, but really doesn't have to change anything. It's kind of just like an interesting new note, as you said, a new ability or a new dimension, but it doesn't really change how Doctor Who works. Nothing is different, essentially.
Yeah. As I said, I bring this up in the middle of the bad section because, well, I have no problem in universe with it. It works fine. On a thematic, structural level, Doctor Who is about the endless reboot, the endless regeneration, the constant sloughing off of the old skin to find something new and find some new life and new future and new this, new that. That's the Doctor goes from new planet to new planet to new planet, having new experiences. Basically, the show gets rebooted every story. It's a story about reincarnation, about renewal, about new life and walking away from the past, whether that's Gallifrey or the previous Doctor. And I feel like, is this endless ferocious hanging on to the 10th Doctor really thematically healthy for the show? Or is this some sort of kind of nostalgia thing that is really pushing against the whole ideology of the show? And I'm kind of frustrated that I didn't get a chance to read Elizabeth Sandifer's review for this episode that I get because I've signed up for her Patreon. She's the one who wrote the TARDIS Oratorium books that are amazing. Because I think it wouldn't surprise me if she addresses this question, at least in her review. Anyway, I don't know. I feel like kind of like Doctor Who's supposed to change. You're supposed to lose the old thing and gain the new thing. You shouldn't. I'm not sure if I feel comfortable with Doctor Who that has the cake and eats it too. It should be a new cake, man. New cake. Old cake is a lie.
I think the thing is that like, that's kind of the like inadvertently, we have to remember that Doctor Who also has to kind of be of its time and evolve and like change and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
I think we're in a time that's unique from previous times where you could generations could kind of do that. Each generation had like a nice little kind of like time period where they had like they were just to themselves. Like now though, with like lifespans being longer and everything, like generations overlap a lot more. Like, you know, I think it's unusual for like the previous generation to live with their parents, but my generation, a lot of us live with our parents because they're still around and they're kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, so things are
yeah,
changing. And I think that like with Doctor Who, it kind of has to change too. And I like the idea of like this whole, you know, why do you have to burn the past or forget the past? Like, you know, like you could kind of live with the past and the past can do its thing and teach you, and you could still go off and do new things, and it doesn't have to be at the expense of the previous thing that like that when in actuality the way real life works is like everything's more of a generate like an evolve and like an overlap, you know, like
yeah,
nothing is just like cut it off and go on to the
yeah.
new thing.
No,
So I think
no,
this is actually a more natural kind of way of expressing that, you know,
yeah.
idea.
I I mean, obviously, it depends on what they do with this. If they keep it, do they keep bringing the 10th Doctor back, or is the 10th Doctor something we only revisit occasionally, and it's just some little weird
That just
corner of
depends
the
on, I
Doctor Who
think that
universe?
honestly will depend on David Tennant, right? Like it depends.
Yeah,
And I think he's very like the way I look at it is like with David Tennant, he seems to be you know, like a shepherd, if you will, for the character. Like he really like loves Doctor Who. They all do. A lot of these guys are huge Doctor Who fans, so they're protective of their doctor, if you will, or their run, or whatever you want to call it, but also of the character overall. And so I think he knows when to take a break and when to he's not going to just come back willy-nilly. And he's got a huge career as a very renowned you know, actor, you know, like in Britain. He's in high demand. So it's like you said earlier, it's like, you know, it would have to be another like, you know, magic and you know, like magical moment where their schedules all align if we're gonna get them all back, you know, or whatever. But I think David Tennant, he's totally allowed to be the elder statesman of this era of Doctor Who. He's the Tom Baker clearly of this, you know, kind of era of Doctor Who. He's very well, you know, like all the other doctors kind of reference him and like you know,
yeah,
like all the other actors reference him. And you know, he certainly, you know, who knows what would have happened if Eccleston stuck around for more seasons, but he didn't. So all we have to do, all we have is to see what Tennant brought Doctor Who to, and Tennant brought Doctor Who to like an insanely kind of
yeah.
new level that it
No,
hadn't,
no,
you
I
know,
absolutely
but
respect
yeah,
him as
so
the fourth
yeah,
Doctor, as the Tom Baker of the new era. But
right.
when Tom Baker left, he left.
Yeah, but now he's back and he's doing Big Finish and
Yeah,
like, you
yeah.
know, so
It
you
took
never say never,
decades before he came back. Decades and decades
but
before he came back.
but
I'm
I
not
think
even
it's
saying.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was, I wouldn't be surprised if he was inspired by seeing what's going on in New Who and seeing like, oh, you know what, this silly old show is might not be as silly as I thought it was. Maybe there's
Yeah,
something to it. And the same thing with Paul McGann. There was a time I feel like Paul McGann was kind of like,
yeah.
you know, I
No, he
did
was.
Doctor Who and I'm kind of done with
Yeah,
that. But
yeah.
now he's like in uniform and like, you know, so I think it's kind of
Well, he's
awesome.
actually gone through a few cycles. There was
Nice.
the I'm not doing Doctor Who ever again. Oh, I'm doing loads and loads of Big Finish. I'm burned out on Big Finish and don't want to come back. Okay, I'm back in the Big Finish now. He's already done a couple cycles of that.
So yeah, it all depends on the actor. So I guess it'll all depend on David Tennant if we'll see
Yeah,
the 10th Doctor.
yeah,
I'm hoping this opens the door for seeing, you know, like because, you know, we've already broken that whole the Doctor can age thing, you know, the fifth Doctor, that cameo. There's like already a way to like make it so the Doctor could be older, but you know, like or whatever. So but you know what? It would be great to see any of the subsequent actors come back and have adventures, and maybe that's something that we start doing is like, you know, Doctor Who is a little bit more, you know, old and new. You know, like again, eat your cake and have your cake and eat it too. era of Doctor Who. Let's just have it all. Like, like let's have an abundance mindset when it comes to Doctor Who and not like a narrow mindset, right?
We'll see.
We'll
I mean,
see
I don't have a
indeed.
problem with this episode. I'm just hoping it's not the tip of some sort of iceberg that I'm not gonna
I
like.
don't think so. I don't think it will be. I think you're gonna expect. I think what you're gonna see is a lot of what you saw with the previous two. I think those were like a good kind of like hint at what's to come. With the first two specials, the
Yeah,
third special was just meant to be like the regenerate. Like bring in some new lore, like set the
yeah.
stage for the next. But I
And
don't
again,
think you're gonna see, like
it,
and do something totally new that Doctor Who's never done before.
yeah. No, and I didn't have any problem with the episode itself. It's just, are we going to just keep bringing the 10th Doctor back over and over and over again? I think that's going to get stale. Well, I think, I don't even know if it'll get stale. It'll get not Doctor Who. That's what it'll get. And that's what worries me, is that what makes Doctor Who unique will somehow might be endangered here by this refusal to let go of David Tennant.
I
But
think just like in the last episode, you're thinking too much, and those
and
not things are
could
gonna
be.
copy. They're gonna copy your consciousness. You got to think less and not worry.
Yeah, yeah,
But I get that concern, but I didn't see it at all like that. I thought it was a nice. I thought that like it left the door open, but in a way that like where if it never got opened again, it wouldn't be a big deal because it
yeah,
was a nice ending for the character. So.
yeah. So,
And I
one
think
other
it would be nice if 11 gets to go back to Amy and Rory and like give and like save them from their fate and let them raise River in a pocket universe and then return her. And she's
I'm,
never been psychotic to begin with. She was always in on it, even more than the doctor even thought before.
yeah. I have no idea what the state of play is with Matt Smith and regarding Big Finish. I like Capaldi has explicitly said he doesn't want to do it. Jodie Whittaker has explicitly said she does want to do it, but I've not heard anything one way or the other. I mean, Matt Smith, I'm sure they've asked him by now, and the fact that he hasn't said yes indicates that somehow the answer is no. But is the answer just hell no, or is the answer maybe later, or maybe when I'm not,
I think you'll
so
see him
busy?
come back in a multi-doctor story
Yeah,
on screen
yeah.
more first.
The Yeah, and I'm still got my fingers crossed that eventually Capaldi will get bored enough to do some Big Finish, but I think he will. Tom Baker came around, Paul McGann came around, Capaldi will come around. Just have to be patient. He'll get there eventually.
He just needs the right story. I feel like actors, if I've learned anything from reading all these like autobiographies recently, like at a certain level it just becomes about like the work itself, and if it doesn't appeal to them, they're not going to do it. So
yeah,
they got to come up with a really good story. Plus the 12th Doctor caught a lot of flack. Both the 12th and the 13th had rough I feel like had rough rides. People were really attached to the 11th Doctor.
Well, yeah, but Big
like,
Finish knows that it knows one of the biggest selling points of Big Finish is we redeemed the 6th Doctor. So I can totally see them saying, "Who's our next Doctor that we redeem?" So
that's true. That's a good point.
Let's see. Last quibble. And this was something I read on Twitter earlier today while I was prepping these notes. Doctor Who, my favorite Doctor Who novelist, favorite Doctor Who writer, probably, Lawrence Miles, Doctor Who novelist Lawrence Miles, he tweeted that the Doctor could have solved this whole thing if he had just introduced the Toymaker to cooperative games. And I was like, oh my God, that would work, because he has to follow the rules, and he'd get this whole nother mentality about playing games if he's not trying to beat the person sitting across the table from him.
You just ruined. I was so hyped about this episode, and now you ruined it, because that would have been so much better if they did that.
To be fair, Lawrence Miles came up with that, not me. I want to be really clear on that
Lawrence
point.
Miles, ruined. Lawrence Miles ruined the 60th anniversary for me, because that would have been an amazing thing. It's still something that we could see happen.
Yes, it could still happen. Toymaker's not dead.
That's awesome.
Um, no. So let's get on to the.
What do you
Did you have
mean
any?
we win together?
Yeah. Did you have any bad things you
What?
wanted to say?
uh to me, yeah, the accent got a little, just like, I love Neil Patrick Harris. Let me just preface by saying he's an actor that I enjoy ever since Doogie Howser. Like, I grew up watching that show. So uh anyways, I did think the accent was like a little overused. I liked it. I thought he was more menacing when he used his natural
Mhm.
accent, and just a lot clearer. I just, in general, like, I like, I could understand. I didn't have to turn the subtitles on when I could, so that was a thing. Um
Darn!
the other
Even when
thing
they
is
have an
that
American on their British TV shows, I still need the subtitles on.
the other thing is that, like, in the I'm just saying this because I'm choosing it because, like, to try to be a little bit balanced, but, like, I will say it wasn't like a deal breaker, and it didn't hinder my enjoyment overall. But if I'm gonna be like a little picky, it's like, it's just, I hope we don't see the same formula of, like, oh, like, unit has to be involved, and, like, like, I get it for these big things, like, again, like, people like this, like the warmongering and the shiny gun, but I really the gun stuff, the
Yeah,
laser, shiny laser, and all that.
yeah,
I get it, like, that's fun, but it just felt like, oh, I've seen this before. Like, this always happens in the big why did this TARDIS have to be, like, hoisted up? It was cool when they did it the first time with the Matt Smith,
yeah,
where the TARDIS was helicoptered, but now, like, it's always helicoptered to the site.
yeah,
I don't know. It's just things like that. Like, I want to see something new where maybe it's like a smaller science division that doesn't have a lot of military, like it doesn't have to be like this huge, like, World War ready for World War thing anymore. That
I
being
think
said, yeah,
I think I mean there's a whole lot of buzz that there's going to be a unit spin-off TV series.
I
And
probably won't
so
watch it, just like I didn't really watch Torchwood because I'm not like, I mean,
yeah,
I'll probably, like, pop in. I'll probably watch the first season, but, like, really, to me, like, the war stuff, especially because there's so much more war going on in,
yeah,
like, real life. It's like I'm a little I think it's, like, tiring. Like, I don't know. Maybe some
yeah.
people find
I'm
it,
not saying
like, yeah,
I would have
yeah,
commissioned a unit
yeah.
TV series. I'm just saying I think that this is here in
But it
both
might
Star
surprise me
Beast and this one to set that up and get the ball rolling in the unit. And
if,
as a field test, if these had gone
yeah.
poorly, they might have said, oh, well, we won't go ahead and spend all the money on the unit TV series.
Well, it'll probably be a winning proposition, and maybe it could turn out to be like something like, if it ends up being like the vibe of Stargate, I guess I could watch it,
Yeah.
but I doubt that you could do what Stargate did. I feel like it was of a time, like, I mean, I feel like it was in the right time, right place. Like, you can't kind of, and Stargate really should try to recreate its own magic, like, not Doctor Who trying to do Stargate.
You don't need a 10 seasons worth of Join the Air Force. So,
What was interesting to me about Torchwood more than all the Torchwoody stuff was the queerness of it. So I think,
yeah.
honestly, like, what people want to see, maybe could be like a
Is
way to
Osgood,
show.
you want Osgood kissing Kate Stewart?
No, I think what I would want in my now, in my 40s, especially like this, since I've been the war doctor for like so many years, like, in a way, like, kind of every day's been like a battle. I want to see like a show that shows like progress towards peace. Like, I want to show like positive examples of how, like, without conflict, that, like, peace can be achieved, kind of like the vibe of TNG, with all the diplomacy. Like, it was very rare in the beginning. Later on they got more actiony, but, like, in the beginning there was a lot more diplomacy, and, like,
Yeah.
not a lot of shots fired, not a lot of big action, like,
Yeah.
war set pieces and stuff like that. So if the unit show kind of, like, focuses on, like, a positive way, like I don't know, but I also don't want him to. I also don't want it to be propaganda for the industrial war complex. So, like, you know, like
We
I don't
have
want.
the same uncertainty about the unit TV series as we did about the Section 31 TV series.
Yes, it's the same exact. I feel the same exact way about Section
Yeah.
31. It like skirts a fine line of like where it could be cool or it could just be another war show, you know. And it's
Yeah.
like I don't know.
And the fact that they don't try to dress them like old school soldiers, but instead dress them like black ops all the time doesn't help.
I will say
You're
that
like, dude, you've got like the scariest armor on the unit troops.
I will
Why
say
not
that
at least give them the little red hats or the little blue hats?
I did appreciate the tradition that all the unit troops are just model hot. They're like hot. They're just insanely hot. Like they're very distracting in that way. I was like, it's very hard to focus when they're on screen. I have to rewind sometimes. Like, what did the doctor say? I was distracted by Colonel whoever, like, you know, like Colonel Hot, General Hot. No, the generals are like rarely hot, but the colonels are usually hot, or the captains. The captains are always hot.
Little schedule chart with a line graph and rank and hotness, and see how that plots. You could do the enlisted and the officers.
So actually, maybe I will watch the unit show if they're like hot soldiers. I guess I will. I'll be forced to watch it for
that. I mean, I'll watch it because it's Doctor Who, but but I hope it's better than season 1 of Torchwood. Because damn, that was bad.
Yeah, I guess that's the only thing is that the episode did skirt because there were a lot of themes revisited, that the episode did skirt for me on the a little bit on the, like, it didn't quite cross over, but it, like, again, it didn't affect my overall enjoyment. There were just a little few things where I thought like, oh, like we've seen this like maybe now twice, like, you know, or 3 times before on Doctor Who, and I kind of wanted to see something all new, you know. But it's cool. I think that's what we're gonna start getting with the 15th Doctor or so.
Yeah, I mean, on the upside, if they're doing a unit TV series, it means that the Doctor Who series is not going to be messing with unit hardly at all, because those stories are all going to go over there, and these stories are going to go over here.
Oh, that was the other thing is, and I think this was intentional, so I wouldn't place this in the bad, but like I was personally like kind of disturbed by the Doctor's like just anger towards humanity. He didn't have any, like, when he was yelling at us about like all like how, like, you know, all that yelling at scene, like it did feel like the Doctor was just like a little tired and like no longer had hope for humanity. So the bi-generation kind of healed him, I think, of that. Like it gives him a new
I kind of took that as that's how Russell T Davies is feeling these days about humanity.
Yeah, well, yeah, and the Doctor is his, it's his avatar, I guess, in a way. So yeah, it's true. But yeah, all of us, I think, are kind of feeling it. Did hit home. It did. I guess maybe that's why it affected me, because it was like, oh yeah, like, you know, like how much time do we spend on our devices, and like these are all games. It's all, everything's gamified. I remember when that term first came up. It's like, you know, and here's a you know, like I think like, yeah, there's just everything's gamified. So there's a good point being made about like how life is right now.
Been doing all these computer tutorial programs, learning how to do stuff with computer programming, and so many of them are gamified. You have little progress bars and points you score and all. I'm like, what is this bullshit? Just teach me how to do the programming. I don't need all these bells and whistles.
Right. I don't want to feel like I'm racing to learn. Like learning should be a thing that's like discovery and joy and like pleasurable, and like you shouldn't have to like feel like you're trying to win or lose, you know. And everything is that binary. It's true. It's like very win or lose. I like that quote about cooperative gaming. Just, I love it. It's like, but how about no games? Let's just live like.
Well, this is the Toymaker. You're not going to get him. You're not going to get him to engage in something that's not a game. But these are games. I did love his speech about the bricks. You're making games about bricks falling. Oh my god, that's so good. Well, let's talk about the wibbly wobbly.
Wibbly wobbly.
Yes. So I'm not entirely clear how they're not keeping the giggle from coming back.
It felt like that was a little strange, but it felt like when the Toymaker was removed from reality, that something happened retroactively because the assistant guy like kind of snapped out of something. Remember, like he has
Yeah.
like this experience, like he's like kind of touches
Well,
himself.
I mean,
So
they
it looks
blew up
like
the satellite, and so, but it seems like the giggle is based off of it's a conceptual attack. Everyone believes the world is television is everywhere, and when television becomes so dominant in people's minds, then the giggle can start turning everyone into libertarians. And so as long as you can keep humanity from thinking about TV too much, the giggle can't come back. But I wasn't really clear that it seems like the giggle is still out there in the conceptual world of TV. It just they pried the trap back open, but it's open again. And yes, they know where it is, and maybe they can avoid it. But explaining the don't think about TV is about the best way to get people to think about something. So
I think what happened was the Toymaker infiltrated our reality in 1925, took over the shop where Stooky Bob was in order to do this, and gave it life and whatever, the Stooky family, the Stooky puppets or whatever. But there was a timeline previous to the Toymaker infiltrating our universe where it was just a toy shop, and that's because Stooky Bob's real, or Stooky Bill or whatever it is a real thing. And the original Stooky Bill didn't have magical powers imbued by an elemental. It was just a dumb little thing. And so when the Toymaker's banished from our reality, it retroactively takes out all of his influence. And so Stooky Bob just becomes Stooky Bob, the dummy that got set on fire by the lights.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, I guess
that's how I interpreted it, because it kind of felt like that, because the guy like pops out of like it's almost like reality changed and he was sensitive to it. I don't know. It was like a weird thing.
Yeah, it could be that just all of his magic, all of the Toymaker's magic is undone. And because it's magic, we can't really complain about whether it makes sense or not.
That's true. That's true. And that's something he was saying, RTD, about this new series. They're going to delve into fantasy a little bit more than they ever have, apparently.
Yeah, I definitely am going to have things to say in the Time Lore section of future episodes, as if that in fact comes to pass like he says it's going to. I guess another wibbly wobbly. The Master's a gold tooth, and somebody picked it up. Oh my god! The red fingernail. I laughed so hard. I had to stop the video.
That was just cheeky fun, right? No, it's not cheeky fun. We know the Master is always going to come back.
I knew he was always going to come back, but the way they did it with the just like with the ring, now the tooth. Just like, wowzer. and Chibnall, or not Chibnall, Russell T. Davies has said, "Yeah, we're done with Daleks and Cybermen for a while." He didn't say anything about the Masters.
Right, it's true.
Master could totally be coming back this season. And did you see
that's another thing is like
the look?
I was just kidding. That's another thing is like it would be, David Sim really redefined the Master. David Sims, right? Like the actor who played the Master with the 10th Doctor. David Sims.
John Sim.
Right? John Sims. Sorry, John. Sorry, Mr. Sims. Maybe John Sims redefined the Master, but I feel like, I hope he also doesn't come back. Like I think it would be cool to just keep having new Masters. Like I really love Missy. I love the Master that we just got.
Sasha Don.
Yeah, he was he was great, I thought. So it'd be nice to see another performer doing the Master as well. Like I hope we don't I
Yeah.
love you, John Sims. You're amazing. You really, but again, yeah, maybe that master will just bother the 14th Doctor. Who knows? We'll see. Maybe he'll retire too, actually, and hang out with the 14th, and they'll just like be pals and brothers
Get
finally. And
married.
yeah, yeah, who knows? Whatever.
So yeah.
Uncle Doctor and Uncle Master. Why not? Rose could have like,
Did you see the look Scooty gives that tooth when he learns that tooth is the master? I was like, whoa, they cut to this deliberate kind of almost bulldog look from
I missed that. I'll have to catch it
Shooty
again.
when the Toymaker explains the significance of the tooth. He's just like, I was like, oh, whoa, okay. This guy was just born like a few seconds, less than a minute ago, but he's already got some issues with the master that we're not seeing from David Tennant here.
Did he ever say that though around the 15th Doctor, around Shooty? Because I thought he said that at the card game with the 10th Doctor. I don't think
No,
he ever.
he brings it back up when they're up on the rooftop.
I didn't realize.
He
Okay.
does. He first mentions turned him into a tooth, my gold tooth, but then he brings it back up when they're on the
that's
rooftop.
why he has that smile that he does with the crazy.
Yeah,
the crazy grill. Okay, I get it. Okay.
And Shooty's just like, it gives him this look, and it's a very deliberate close up on Shooty's face. Like, look at this reaction shot about there's the master in his mouth, and he's not happy about that.
But the Toymaker in this kind of the implication of him, like, taking people and turning them into teeth kind of like brings him closer to our idea of like what like the devil is, like you play a game with the devil. If the devil wins, he gets your soul.
Yeah.
And if you win, you get maybe
and
you're free,
Yeah, and that was absolutely the Toymaker's thing. He turned you into little dolls or puppets or stuff, action figures.
Hence the Toymaker, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
That would have been hilarious to see, like, action figures that are actually from the toy line, from the actual Doctor Who toy line, like, and turn them into that. That would have been
fun. I guess the other wibbly wobbly thing. So the Toymaker says he's responsible for the jigsaw puzzle of the Doctor's history. So, like,
he says your history, right?
Yeah.
So it's specifically the Doctor's history. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, is it referring to just the 14th Doctor's history, which is just like a couple days, or is it referring to the entire span of the Doctor's life? So is the Toymaker responsible for the Doctor losing his memory of his timeless child incarnations? I mean, or is, like, I don't know. I'm just kind of curious as to how much he there have been Toymaker stories in the expanded universe, but none of them seem to indicate that they had that much of a altering effect on his continuity. So I just thought that was interesting. I guess it's another, if you have a continuity problem, you can just say Toymaker.
I think you could safely say the Toymaker was probably hardly ever. I think they even say it in the original episode where he's hardly ever been defeated. It's a very rare thing to be defeated. So he probably holds a grudge, and he always, and I bet the previous times he's been defeated, he probably won in a rematch, or like, ruined whatever that being's life was, like however, whatever. So I think that's what he was kind of, my guess is that at least since that first Doctor episode, he's been influencing as much as he can from the outside things to vex the Doctor, kind of, and maybe create strife, maybe the Time War, inadvertently, who knows what. But he's kind of doing a blanket, but it kind of, like, obviously for written reasons, it opens it up to later on say, oh, it was the Toymaker all along, like it was never the master or whatever, like. And then also it opens the door, a being of this power also opens the door to kind of maybe reverse certain things like the flux, and maybe, who knows what can happen down the line. The Toymaker could lose a game that causes the Doctor to restore the universe or something else, or we
Yeah.
might not be worried about that ever again. I don't know. I
The
don't know
fact
how the
that
15th, is going to deal
yeah,
with the flux, or if the flux is going to be a thing at all.
I actually had this thought earlier today, that the fact that they keep bringing up the flux destruction kind of makes me wonder if we are working our way towards a restoration of the universe in some later episode. I mean, it
It would
could
be a
just
nice
be
payoff, yeah.
yeah, it could just be Russell T Davies likes his doctors angsty, and I blew up Gallifrey, so now I couldn't save the universe, and it's just, oh, here's something
Right.
new that they can be angsty about, and that could be it. And
Yeah.
but because Russell never did anything to undo the Gallifrey mess, he just left it blown up, or maybe it's leading up to something where we are going to bring the universe and maybe even Gallifrey back, though Russell hasn't shown much interest in Gallifrey so far. But
I think the show has also kind of like, in my mind, at least the Time Lords have such a dark kind of past or history that like the show kind of uses the Time Lords as like now it uses the Time Lords as a kind of like a warning about absolute authority, which they do. They have absolute authority over time. It's like it's a thing. So
yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think that was, I guess the other wibbly wobbly is, so there's a pocket watch with all of the memories of the timeless children. Is now one hidden in both of those TARDISes?
Oh, yes, there would have to be.
I mean, I don't know. The
Based on
TARDIS,
what we saw was, well, there was also a jukebox in one though,
yeah,
and not in the other, so that's kind of interesting. And I love that the 15th Doctor gives the same critique that I did about the new TARDIS. It needs seats.
it's a yes.
I was very happy to see that the 15th Doctor is aligned with me on the whole seat thing, and so I hope to see some seats.
Though when the TARDIS split, there were no chairs in there. It was just a jukebox, as far as I
Or
can tell.
rather an iPod. I keep forgetting
iPod,
that's an
yes.
iPod.
Yes.
It looks like the one from the end of time, or the end of, what was it? Yeah, the end of time, or what? Not what was that episode called? The end of
End of the world.
End of the world. End of the world. End of time is a different episode.
We make jokes about iPod, but Rose could have gone back in time and said the word iPod to Mr. Juke, and Mr. Juke decided to name it that, and it's all a Mavity situation, and they really are called iPods.
That would be great. We still didn't fix Mavity, right? Mavity's
Nope.
still a thing. Yep.
Mavity's still, at least it should be. I'll be a little annoyed if it's suddenly back to gravity next week, or not. At least not without a bit of at least a hand wave about why. So,
right.
Well, I guess we've reached the end of the wibbly wobbly. I actually have a pretty interesting Time Lore discussion here about the origin. The origin of the Toymaker is startlingly big and complicated and interesting, in my opinion. If you're the sort of person who has made it this far into the show, these episodes of the show, you probably would like to hear it. I'm also noticing that we are coming up on hour 3 of this podcast. So I am wondering if we should continue at this point and keep plowing onwards, or chop it in half, or what?
Well, I say we go for it, and then you can decide if you want to chop it in half later or not.
Okay.
So either
Okay.
this is a wait till next time, or we're just gonna keep going. So it'll depend how Brian edits it.
Okay. We'll fix it in post.
We'll fix it in post. Exactly.
All right. Well, then let's talk about the Time Lore. The Time Lord. Well, this isn't so much the Time Lords, but it's important in the same way that knowing about the president is important to understanding Congress. The Toymaker. The Toymaker comes from the universe before the current one in Doctor Who. Universe 1 is what Tecteun called the universe that we see in Doctor Who. And she said they were headed to Universe 2. But before Universe 1, there was Universe 0 or Universe -1, depending on if you're into doing math or ADBC stuff. And in that previous universe is where the Toymaker originates. The Toymaker is a species that would at one point be known as the Archons. The Archons existed in the previous universe. They were an underwater aquatic species that used echolocation to communicate and to navigate. And they spoke that language called quantum mnemonics, which had the ability to rewrite and alter the universe around it. And the Archons were the lords of time of their universe. In their universe, they lorded over time. They anchored they anchored all of history with some sort of equivalent to an Eye of Harmony, and they lorded over time in the same way that the Time Lords. Even beyond that, they took an active hand in ruling the universe, that previous universe 0. In a way that the Time Lords kind of just stay on Gallifrey and don't interact much unless you go and poke them with a stick or a plunger. The Archons actually kind of ran the whole universe. Eventually that universe, they realized the end of that universe was upon them, and they shunt themselves into a parallel universe with a slight, where the lifespan of that universe was going to be slightly longer. And they did this to escape the destruction of the previous universe. So they slip into a universe that's going to live just a little bit longer, and then they slip back into the new universe that is formed in the primary timeline. If you can apply the word timeline to big crunches and big bangs. And so they basically jumped into froggered their way into the new universe when the old universe died. And they watched the old universe die from the other timeline, and they arrived in this universe. And apparently a lot of their memories of the previous universe was lost in that transition. It might be there's some sort of informational conceptual chokehold between a big bang and a big crunch that prevents data from passing from one to the other, even if you do this mini side universe trip. This all happened. The new universe starts with what's sometimes called Event 0 and sometimes called Event 1. It's a little confusing in various data sources. I'm going to go with Event 1, which seems to be a little more common. But here on Earth, we call that the Big Bang. And in the year 13,500,017,903 BC, the Big Bang happened. Boom. And yes, in Doctor Who land, they've exactly pinned down what year the Big Bang happened. And it's reasonably close to what scientists think. They think around 13.5 billion years, maybe 13.2 billion instead of 13.5 billion. But it's reasonably on point for Doctor Who, which is impressive because Doctor Who's science is terrible. And that's, if you're counting, about 10 million years before Rassilon, or 10 billion years before Rassilon comes along. Is the universe is born in a massive explosion. And this is caused, it's a little bit of a tangent. Well, first let's talk about the Archons a bit more. As you can see here on the picture, that guy in the spacesuit, that's the corpse of an Archon right there. That is one of the Time Lords of the previous universe in a perhaps somewhat decayed state inside a spacesuit, sitting inside one of their time ships from the previous universe. And I think the next picture shows a slightly closer picture of the helmet. It's interesting. They seem to like stars on their crotch patch there. I'm not quite sure what to make of that. Put some stars on that. 3 of them. But yes, we find the Doctor finds the corpse of what we would later learn in the expanded universe is an Archon in the episode, the 5th Doctor episode, Terminus. Here he is with the Doctor's coat thrown over the back of his chair. Or maybe she, don't really know. Maybe they weren't exactly like Time Lords. They just were somewhat similar. They had the same technological level and supremacy in their universe. And so you've got this other universe here, and it's destroyed by the gods of Ragnarok. Which you might remember from a 7th Doctor episode. And they end up causing the destruction of the previous universe. I think they might have been Archons as well, but if not, they were some other temporal power of higher evolutionary from the previous universe. But the 3 of them cause the end of the universe by creating instabilities in one of the engines of one of the massive time stations of the Archons. And could we get the next picture there in the line? I think that's the picture of the time station. Yeah, there's Sohail. There we go. Okay. Sorry the picture's not more clear. But
sorry, this bigger TARDIS, the kitchen is further away than previous TARDIS that I've been in, or TARDIS control areas or whatever.
That is the biggest complaint about the Type 40 is how far away the kitchen is from the
kitchen is. Yes. So I had to run back in order to change the slide. I apologize. Now I'm going to run back again, but I'll be here. I'll be back.
Okay. All right. So that is a massive space station there that is, I don't know, like at least the size as long as the Enterprise. Maybe more like a Star Destroyer. I'm not sure. But that's one of their time stations that the Archons used. And the gods of Ragnarok create instabilities in one of their engines. And the time station's Archon ejects the fuel. And hello, a whole bunch of cats here. So the cosmic kitty. Are you a great old one? Are you a Cthulhu? No? Okay. So, the gods of Ragnarok, or the creatures that will become them, cause instability, create instabilities in this time station. And in response to the instabilities, the time station's pilot ejects the fuel from the unstable engine. The ejected fuel is a condensed monoblock of matter. And as it gets ejected through what passes for a vortex, the 5th dimension in this previous universe, it collides with a spaceship, a time ship from the future, from the next universe. So in this join between the past universe and the future universe, the monoblock of matter ejected by the time station in the past smashes into a ship from the universe 1, from our universe, called the Vipod Moor. And let's check my notes here. And the Vipod Moor travels back in time and materializes in the center of this monoblock of matter and detonates, creating the Big Bang, destroying the previous universe, and this monoblock singularity expands out, creating the new universe, creating Universe 1. And it's worth noting that the time station has a main space-time element in the console. I don't know if I don't think I got a picture of it, but that looks exactly like the heart of a TARDIS. And it's on the console next to that pilot I was showing you earlier, but I don't think it's actually in the picture I sent. So this is probably, and you're like, well, wait, why would the heart of a time ship from another universe look the same as the heart of the Doctor's TARDIS? That's because the Time Lords steal the seeds to grow their TARDISes from the Archons. The Archons arrive in the new universe, set themselves up as the great old ones and gods, and create a place they called the Nameless City to live in a pocket universe. And they create their time bridges. And when the Rassilon starts trying to develop TARDISes, he realizes that if he wants to pull this off, it would be a hell of a lot easier if he just took the work from somebody else. So the Time Lords stole the seeds that they grew the TARDISes from the Archons. And that's why the Archon time ship and the TARDIS both has an identical component that looks like the heart of the TARDIS.
No,
So
Time Lords, they steal everything, man.
yeah. So now it appears that TARDISes themselves are in fact something the Time Lords invented, but they were grown and developed using the seeds they stole, and they'd clone these seeds. And so this is like, what does this have to do with the Celestial Toymaker? The Celestial Toymaker was an Archon. He was one of these people. I don't know if he was really responsible for all of this. He was one of the ones who did make the transition into the next universe. So moments after the Big Bang, the beings that become known as the Great Old Ones enter this new universe through a sentient black hole known as Azonoth, the blind idiot god of chaos. And the Archons arrive in a blast of music and light. The Archons are very much into music in much the same way that the Jaggeroth are, into the music of the spheres, the music that nature creates through its repetitive cyclic actions of gravity and light and radiation and everything in life. The cycles of life create music that the Archons are masters of. And I think it probably ties in with the quantum mnemonic, their understandings of quantum mnemonics that allowed them to manipulate it. Using the language of quantum mnemonics, the Great Old Ones discover they have amazing powers in this universe. Using this language, they could rewrite reality and even bring about the destruction of this universe. However, the rules of their game prevent them from interfering with lesser species directly. And I'd love to be able to elaborate at this point, but that's all I know. There's some sort of game, they call it the game, and they play it, and the rules of the game prevent them from being too active. They're basically kind of big, dark, ancient gods, but they're not allowed to be too active in this new universe, and are not allowed to interfere with lesser species directly. Due to these rules that are created at the universe's childhood, they can only survive outside in the normal space for about 4 weeks before they start to die, because they're from different universe with different physical laws. And as they get, but as long as they keep themselves in their own little pocket spaces where they can surround themselves with their own type of space-time that they brought with them from the previous universe, they can effectively become immortal. They're effectively immortal and will live till the end of this universe, as long as, they don't go out in the sun for more than a few weeks. And the Greater Old Ones become elemental forces and an integral part of this new universe. Together, they are the most important of them, the Greater Old Ones, are known together as the Sixfold God, because there's 6 of them. They're also known as the Grace, plural. This is why and the Grace is probably a huge pan-dimensional elemental being. The Sixfold God, the Grace, is made up of 6 hyperdimensional guardians. There's the Guardian of Light, which we talked about, who likes to wear a dead dove on his head. He is the Guardian of Structure, and his color is white. There's the Guardian of Chaos, and he's the Guardian of Entropy, and his color is black, and he likes to wear a raven on his head. There's the Guardian of Justice, and that Guardian is, the color for that Guardian is red. I don't know what kind of bird it wears. Cardinal, maybe? I don't know. I haven't seen that one yet. Then there is the twins, Equilibrium, whose color is azure. And is that related to Azure from the Ravager from the Flux storyline? Not sure.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's another character named Azure, though I got the idea Azure didn't quite seem to have Guardian level powers.
Powers, yeah.
Yeah, but and who's Swarm then? Is Swarm the Black Guardian? So certainly the Doctor doesn't seem to recognize Swarm as the Black Guardian. Though Swarm looks an awful lot like a potential agent for the Black Guardian. Anyway, there's the twins, Equilibrium, the Guardian of Equilibrium, Azure, whose color is azure, and the Guardian of Life, whose color is gold. And then there's the Guardian of Dreams, who is also known as the Crystal Guardian, and also known as the Celestial Toymaker. So the top 6 of these archons form this sixfold god, and the Toymaker is 1/6 of the grace. Each member of the Council of Guardians answers only to the grace as a whole, and the grace is even capable of banishing guardians. Most of the grace lives outside the universe's first 5 dimensions in the howling void that's known as the sixfold realm, because there's 11 dimensions in the Doctor Who universe, 11 primary dimensions, and you've got the, length, width, height, time, the vortex. Those are the first 5. And then you've got another 6. That's the sixfold realm where the sixfold god lives. Each guardian is granted a dimension to kind of serve as their dominion of one of those 6. The grace must perform can perform massive actions and changes, but only in unison. Otherwise, cosmic balance will be upset. So if the 6 of them can actually do big, crazy, powerful stuff to the universe. But if they don't do it, if they aren't all in agreement and working together, they unbalance the universe and it all goes to hell. And it turns out that, as you might guess, having seen the Black Guardian and the White Guardian and the Toymaker, they don't get along that well. And so they almost never work together. So while they could be an incredibly active force in the universe, because you've got a room with the Black Guardian, the Guardian of Chaos, the Guardian of Structure, and the Guardian of Dreams, all in the same room, along with 3 other guys who are also have different agendas, nothing ever gets done. Which I guess is good, because it means that lesser species throughout the universe have some sort of sense of free will and agency. It is so it's impossible for lesser species to really grasp or understand anything about how the grace thinks and why they do the things they do, very much like Q. But in general terms, the grace spends all of their time keeping the universe in order. They serve as conduits through which the fundamental essence of the universe can act and are essential for cosmic balance. The Guardians seek fulfillment through I guess the Guardians. I should pause there. And the Guardians seek fulfillment. They derive their meaning in life through the Eternals. And, well, they also invented the Chronivores, but I get the idea it's mostly the Eternals that they created the Eternals, they created the Chronivores, but they seem to kind of not like the Chronivores much and threw them to the side as a bad experiment, whereas they kind of focused on the Eternals. So serving being gods of the Eternals is what, the sixfold god runs all the great old ones. The great old ones run the Eternals. The Eternals seek their fulfillment through the thoughts of the ephemerals, and the ephemerals are Time Lords, humans, Daleks, everything else, all the other species, higher evolutionaries and lesser species are all. So there's this cosmic hierarchy of godhood working its way down, each supervising the other. And the Black and White Guardians are each given responsibility for for 50% of the reality of the universe. But the other Guardians are getting things like concepts like justice and dreams and equilibrium and life. So the celestial Toymaker is the guardian of dreams. And so I'm pretty sure one of those other 6 dimensions, the sixfold realm, one of them is the dimension of imagination. So I'm kind of assuming that he's the one who, as guardian of dreams, he's the one who's got that universe. It's not exactly stated anywhere. It's just one place states there's a dimension called imagination, and another place states that each guardian has control over one of these dimensions. But I'm just tying them together myself. Whereas a lot of this is actually based on pretty reasonable conjecture. That is something of a leap I'm making here. And I wonder, is that where the land of fiction exists? Is in that dimension of imagination, land of fiction? Maybe.
Oh, nice tie-in.
Yeah, it could work. Again, just pure headcanon in here.
Which we talked about. I don't remember what episode we talked about it, but we talked about it on this.
Yeah. And I almost got this out, and then I realized, wait a minute, this is kind of on point. The mental activity produced during rapid eye movement sleep is very similar to the biverarity anomaly quartz that is created naturally by the friction of various universes grinding together. And yes, that's pure technobabble double talk from a Doctor Who novel, but the Doctor went out into the space between universes and did something, and the Toymaker got out of the dimension of imagination, and that's where dreams happen. Is the nature of way dreams works, and the nature of way universes rub together is apparently very connected, or either together.
Right.
So somehow it all ties together. Insert magical realism technobabble here. And well, the guardian, the Black Guardian and the White Guardian are charged with the mass of the universe, 50% each. The celestial Toymaker, the guardian of dreams, is tasked with nurturing the early civilizations of the universe and creating planets and cities for them. He is supposed to be, he is tasked by the rest of the grace to go and help out these super early civilizations. I think this refers to Eternals and Chronivores as opposed to what we normally think of as like the early life forms of the universe. But either way, he's out there building planets and cities for them, like the Darkheart, which is where baby Chronivores grow up. And it's been mentioned in the novelization that there are several Toymakers, though the only one we've managed to identify is Hecuba, the Queen of Time, who is the sister of the Toymaker, of the Celestial Toymaker. And Hecuba was actually in a script written by Brian Hales, who wrote the original Celestial Toymaker. It was a sequel script for the second Doctor, where Jamie and Victoria and the Doctor were all going to get captured by Hecuba and be put through a bunch of time-themed puzzles and traps. Because she's the Queen of Time. She calls herself the Queen of Time. And well, that existed as a script that was not produced. Big Finish has since taken that script from the 60s and made a whole audio drama out of it. So I guess it's canon now, or I guess it happened. It certainly seems to fit in there very well. You can have your own debate about whether or not it's a good story, but it does appear to be a real story at this point. So there's the Toymaker as a sister, and perhaps other siblings. Those could be the other Toymakers out there, perhaps. Let's see what else we got. So only just a few millennia after the universe came into, so the universe's age is like a few thousand years old at this point, maybe 5,000. The Celestial Toymaker, who's running around building planets and cities for these ancient races, gets bored, and he decides he's just going to start destroying stuff because that's fun. So the Toymaker goes around blowing things up, destroying things, and causing devastation. And then he gets bored with that too. And then he discovers games. And games become his whole life. It's the only thing he cares about now. And he creates the Toy Room universe underneath, in the hollow underneath the Vampire Under universe. And he stays there, and he ends up being kind of boxed in. It's only when there's a disruption to Rassilon's rationality of the universe that he or his fellow toy makers can interfere with the people in normal space. But these distortions of these emergences of irrationality occur often enough that he's able to slip out of his domain and force lesser species to play games and turn people into puppets. But that's why he's not just doing it nonstop all the time, is because he can't get out of his own domain to access and grab people and either pull them in or go out and harass them, except when some sort of something disturbs the rationality of the universe. And that's what Time Lords do. Time Lords lock down the universe so that it's a rational place and magic doesn't work. However, there aren't very many Time Lords left. And we're not even sure if the Eye of Harmony is still working on Gallifrey after the events of the Timeless Children. So if the Eye of Harmony isn't anchoring rationality, it could be starting to slip. And if it's slipping, then we could be getting irrationality. We could get salt barriers that function. We could be getting whatever else Russell T Davies is talking about happening in the future. All of that could be coming now because the things are not anchored. To skip forward 10 billion years to when Rassilon is trying to figure out the universe, and he goes and meets with the Guardians. He is informed, he meets them, and he is informed by the Grace that just as the Time Lords have absolute authority over time, so too the Guardians have absolute authority over the Time Lords. And Rassilon makes enough of an arrogant prick of himself at the meeting and asks enough probing, questions too deeply. He gets banished by the Guardians and told you're not allowed to meet with us anymore. And Rassilon will keep the knowledge of the existence of the Guardians and their direct supervision of Time Lord activities secret. And this secret will be passed on to every Lord President. So the only person who knows that the Guardians, that the President has, if the Guardians say jump, if the Grace says jump, the Lord President of Gallifrey has to say how high, is the President. But he has to execute whatever orders if the Guardians do deign to give him an order, Lord President an order, he has to execute it. And that's a secret that nobody finds out until they become president. So eventually the Doctor figured it out when he became president. That's one of the many, many secrets you pick up when you put that matrix circlet on your head is, oh, wait, I have a boss. I did not know that.
So Romana would have learned that too. Wow.
Yes. Romana would have learned it when she became Lady President or Lord President. I don't know which one she prefers there. And the Time Lords do try to do some research into the Celestial Toymaker, but every time they get anywhere close, he pulls them into their games and turns them into puppets, and it's just they say screw it, whatever, the Toymaker is too much of a trouble, and they kind of issue a policy: don't mess with the Toymaker. No, we don't know how it works, but just stay away from him. So that was kind of the backstory, that the things that happened way before the Doctor concerning the full thing on the Toymaker. I don't know if you had any questions on that, but
it was really thorough. I didn't know any of that, so that was really, really cool for me. That's why I was kind of quiet the whole time, because I was like learning a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of info. That's why.
But it reminds me a lot of Tolkien. It's very similar. You've read Silmarillion?
I've read Hobbit, The Hobbit.
Okay. In the Silmarillion, they talk about kind of like the origin of the universe, and there was a lot of similarities, I thought. But I think, of course, that's because those are all similar to like some myths, human myths and stuff. And so that's a really neat recap of this aspect of Doctor Who. And I'm really excited about the idea of the Eye of Harmony being the shield against magic.
Oh yes,
if you will. It's interesting. I didn't realize that.
I
And
have
that's a
2 or
cool
3
thing.
episodes roughly outlined that will cover that. That hopefully we will get to before all that long. But
Well, we have to go the long way around, unlike the Doctor. But
yeah,
yeah, we'll
yes,
get there eventually. Hopefully,
yes.
God,
But
God
we are
will, elementals willing.
yes. If I'm glossing over it a bit, it's because it's a big thing that deserves its entire more than one, probably even 2 or 3 episodes,
Wow.
to focus on this big idea. But we are absolutely going to get into that at some point. So that's why I'm kind of giving you a taster. Now
we do the? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
There is a new development, however, that dropped in this episode.
Yes.
The Toymaker reveals that he played games with the other Guardians of Time and Space and turned them into voodoo dolls. So there is no grace, or at least they're not in charge anymore.
That's very interesting, isn't it?
And yeah, the grace is gone. The Black Guardian is gone. The White Guardian is gone. They're all voodoo dolls in the Toymaker's realm. I don't know what to do with that. The entire cosmology of Doctor Who just got blown up in a couple of lines of dialogue.
Well, I mean, the Toymaker must be using the voodoo dolls to control. In other words, conceptually, we think of them as voodoo dolls, but really, what it means is he's won their power.
Yeah. No, he's the voodoo doll of chaos. I suppose if you want to manipulate chaos, you just manipulate the voodoo doll of chaos, and that it manipulates chaos throughout the universe. And if you want to manipulate structure, you manipulate the voodoo doll of structure, and it
makes sense that the Toymaker would be the most powerful of the Guardians, because imagination, like if you can open that up, you can pretty much do anything you want, right?
Yeah.
Almost. So unchecked imagination can go wild. That's pretty fascinating. Reminds me of the Neil Gaiman, the Sandman, because he would be the same kind of character, like, or the same kind of elemental, I guess, as the Sandman in that case.
Yes, no, there's definitely. I think the writers of a lot of this material were absolutely reading the Silmarillion, and we're absolutely reading Neil Gaiman, Sandman and stuff. I have no doubts of that. They've actually said about the Sandman stuff. I've even seen that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But so yeah, this was absolutely a huge inference. They were all a bunch of nerds, so, just like us. The writers who wrote most of this were people exactly like us, only with British accents,
which we will not affect as to not be like the Celestial Toymaker.
Yeah, we will leave the British accents to the Celestial.
To the British. Yeah, exactly. Shall we?
He also.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Oh, my bad. Sorry.
He also says that he turned God into a Jack-in-the-Box.
Yes.
And I'm like, sometimes the Grace seems to be the God of the Doctor Who universe, but he already addressed he turned the Grace into voodoo dolls. So the Jack-in-the-Box thing seems to indicate that that's some other God. Is there a God above the Grace, or is it a reference to the gods of Ragnarok, or some other the Time Lord gods, the Menti Celesti?
I think it's definitely got to be a lowercase g god, because there's so many of them. Even Sutek is kind of a lowercase case g god. So who knows?
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't know if the
Sutek. Jack in the Box.
It kind of, I bring you
Sutek's gift of death.
I bring you Sutek's gift of fresh milk. Do you remember that? Of course.
Yes.
I
All
bring
right.
you Sutek's gift of a Saturday matinee. I bring you Sutek's gift of a 3.5 hour long podcast.
Well, speaking of the length of the podcast, did we want to do TARDIS feature of the week?
Oh, we are definitely going to do the TARDIS
The
feature of the week. We've gotten this
Okay.
far.
Oh,
We got to go.
yes.
Wrong one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Here we go. There we go. We're going to do
All right. TARDIS feature of the week. You notice there are two TARDISes in this. How did that happen? Well, if you wanted, you could just say leftover Toymaker magic and irrationality in the universe that they somehow imbued in that hammer, and just by invoking the Toymaker's irrationality and hitting the TARDIS with a hammer, it happened. But that's not good enough for us at Rassilon Omega and the other guy. We're going to go deep and we're going to go hard. So lie back and think of Rassilon.
Oh, wow. I don't know. Depends which Rassilon I'm thinking about.
The sexy one.
Okay.
The Archons created TARDIS technology. The original TARDIS seeds were created by the Archon science mages, probably for use in their time henges, which is like Stonehenge, only it's made out of time. After discovering the secret of time travel, the early Gallifreyans, led by Rassilon, steal these TARDIS seeds from the Archons and use them to create the first TARDISes. And then they clone the seeds so they can grow future TARDISes. So we see this TARDIS cloning happen on screen, but in a sense, we're going back to the Toymaker's the Toymaker's species here when we're cloning TARDISes, because all of these seeds are cloned from the original TARDIS seeds that were stolen by the early Time Lords. So if you have a sample of an organic protein unit from a TARDIS, it is possible to clone a whole new TARDIS just using a small piece of it. And we see this in the deleted scene of Journey's End. In the deleted scene where the Doctor goes to drop Rose off with her 10th Doctor, in the deleted scene, the Doctor, I think it was either Rose or the Doctor, gives the other 10th Doctor, the Metacrisis Doctor, a fist-sized hunk of TARDIS coral so that he can clone his own TARDIS. And they discuss some of how you would do that. And there's also a hunk of TARDIS coral on Captain Jack's desk in the Torchwood hub, where he's trying to grow his own TARDIS or time ship. So TARDIS cloning is a thing that we've seen a few times before. Also, the Sid Rats in War Games are all TARDIS clones, very poorly made TARDIS clones that are missing some of the important bits and are not properly educated. But yes, if you have the proper piece of this organic protein unit, you can a proper sample of an organic TARDIS protein unit, like those little spheres that were hanging off the tree inside the TARDIS. This is protein core in Journey to the Center of the TARDIS. You don't even need the whole sphere, just a hunk of it. You can grow yourself a TARDIS. The capsule's protein units will use warp matrix engineering to reform a new endoshell and an exoshell, following the specifications that were set down in the TARDIS Grey Prints. This process will start with forming a cloister room and an Eye of Harmony, and then expand outwards to grow the rest of the Time Scepter upwards. With a dimensionally transcendental cradle to put the baby TARDIS in, to feed this regrowth, it only takes about a decade to grow a TARDIS, to gestate a TARDIS. But without it, the TARDIS has to rely on some other source of Artron energy for its growth and nutrition. If you just have it near a Time Lord, it can absorb the Artron energy of that Time Lord slowly over time. However, this will take thousands of years to clone a TARDIS. But there are ways to accelerate this growth if you find a source of energized, morphogenically unstable organic material. Depending on the power levels available, this could reduce the growing time to around a mere 100 years. Similar results could be obtained by shatter firing the plasmic shell and modifying the dimensional stabilizers to a foldback harmonic of 36.3. This will accelerate the growth by a factor of 59. Continual exposure to rift energy can also help reduce the growth time to about 50 years. So there's various ways to get it smaller. Now, I know what you're saying, dude. It wasn't 50 years. It wasn't even a decade like it takes on Gallifrey. He just smacked it with a hammer and boom, it was there. Well, I think this is where the morphologically unstable matter energy of the Toymaker's domain comes into it. I think that's what was being used to create the TARDIS. At least that's my headcanon, is that remember, the Toymaker takes space-time from his own universe, his old previous universe, everywhere he goes. And I think that was what was processed and used.
That kind of fits with the dialogue too, that Shooty.
Yeah. He says there's still some bits of it around. Well, if he carries it around him like a cloud, and then he gets suddenly folded up into a toy box and shoved it, and his realm collapses, there could easily be some puffs of Toymaker universe rolling around. I should tell you sometime about hydrogen burns. And it's flammable, but it's invisible. So one time there was a bunch of flaming hydrogen loose in a lab at NASA, and they couldn't see it. So they were waving brooms around, and if the brooms suddenly caught fire, they knew they'd found it.
That's pretty crazy.
So yes, just like that, and that's a real life thing I talked, not some bogus sci-fi thing. Just like that, there were probably blobs of space-time from the other universe floating around that the TARDIS was able to absorb, and probably was even sucking up, just because it's probably not safe to have that stuff floating around. And TARDISes tend to kind of clean up and stabilize space-time around them as a side effect of as a deliberate part of their normal operation.
Got it.
So at the end of this time, TARDIS will still need to have several pieces of exotonic circuitry implanted into it to be a proper TARDIS. These systems include a chameleon circuit, gender circuits, and most importantly, the temporal drive. Given the amount of time the cloning process generally takes, an experienced Time Lord with proper plans will have plenty of time to build the necessary systems, even if they're just limited to like 21st century Earth technology. So it might have actually taken the Doctor a little bit of time to get that TARDIS fully working. Maybe not, but if we're going with this TARDIS clone idea, that's what we saw was a TARDIS cloning, then he probably did have to go get into Unit's labs, build a bunch of crap, and install it to get the thing fully operational. But I don't think we see anything on screen. We just know he took Mel for a trip. And Rose for a trip later on, but we don't, as we discussed, we don't know exactly how far in the future that is. It's certainly far enough in the future that the entire Noble family considers Mel to be family, which is not where we are at the end of the episode otherwise. They just met. So it's not unknown for a time-aware species to attempt to illegally clone a Time Lord TARDIS using these variations of this process. A fully cloned TARDIS, legal or otherwise, is usually designated with a model number based on the type of the capsule, providing the cutting. So technically, one of those that we saw is actually a Model 40. Not a Type 40, if we're going with this clone theory. I mean, this is just nomenclature. It doesn't really change anything meaningful. It's just a way Time Lords keep these things straight in their heads. So a clone of a Type 60 would be known as a Model 60. It should be noted that illegally cloned TARDIS would have the exact same symbiotic imprimatur signature as the original donor TARDIS, which means the official owner of the parent TARDIS can be easily found by examining the clone TARDIS. And comparing it with records on Gallifrey. So yeah, this is not really much of an issue here because it's the Doctor's symbiotic nuclei in both cases who are going to be bonded with that
Right.
TARDIS. We're not having a different Time Lord completely run off with that other TARDIS. And there's no really time police anymore to complain about whether or not he legally owns that TARDIS or not. I don't think he can really say he stole it. Maybe he stole it in the past, but it's pretty much his after all the other Time Lords are dead. Nobody else has a bigger right to it. So yes, TARDIS cloning, which maybe is what we saw. I hopefully that was kind of interesting. I didn't go too much into Sid Rats from the War Games because I do plan to cover that whenever we get to War Games later. So
Excellent.
But yes, and if you can't wait till later, allthingstimelord.com has everything you want to know. So, and Sohail has some stuff you might want to know too.
Starfleet Sohail, we're kind of on a hiatus, but we're coming back soon. Also tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, I'm talking about this episode. Well, actually, it's very timey-wimey. I don't know when this is coming out, but you can see some extra Doctor Who discussions with our friend Robbie over on Starfleet Sohail After Dark.
All right. Well, let's see what the time scanner says. Is there a new Doctor Who next week?
Not next week.
There's not one. It's nothing. I'm going to expand the range. All right. Try the Sonic. Let's see if we can get it a little stronger. What do we got? We have to wait till Christmas.
It's going to be worth the wait, though, because it's going to be called The Church on Ruby Road.
Yes. Yes, that's what it's going to be called. So, yes, there will be another episode sometime shortly after Christmas, and we are going to cover the Christmas special, The Church on Ruby Road. But until then, see you later in these time and relative dimensions in space.
So long.